Chapter 22:15. About 10 minutes later, Grievous's room was quiet. Alice and the other members of the Knight stood behind Grievous like javelins, while Grievous herself was like a queen surrounded by the ladies. On the ground in front of her, there was a miserable figure crawling on the ground. His nose was bruised and his face was swollen. He was breathing weakly and his face had turned green. His turbid eyes were filled with despair towards the future. It was as though he had been defiled by some evil person. His expression was one of despair. Principal. Alice's face was slightly hot. Looking at the half-dead god Fengzhao, she blamed herself. Although she didn't have a good impression of this guy, she couldn't help but feel a little guilty for beating him up to such a state. The few of you, members of the Knights, have really disappointed me. After a moment of silence, Grievous said something shocking. She said in an indignant tone, "You have been beating him up for more than 10 minutes. They are all superficial wounds. You didn't even break a single bone of this guy. Are you guys slacking off?" Principal, these words not only made the members of the Knight Regiment speechless, but the victim, God Fengzhao, also opened his eyes, which were several times larger than Tong Ling's, and roared angrily, "Damned old witch, you hit me for no reason, and you still dare to, bang." Who would have thought that before God Fengzhao could finish his words, Grievous would glance at him coldly and kick his face without any trace of politeness. Caw caw caw. Following a few crisp sounds, God Fengzhao suddenly felt a sharp pain in his mouth. He touched it and not only was it swollen, a few of his teeth were also broken. "You are so heartless." God Fengzhao glared angrily and cursed Grievous thousands of times in his heart. Heartless. Grievous almost jumped up when she heard this. She took a few deep breaths and cursed God Fengzhao's 18 generations of ancestors. "Why didn't you show any mercy when you scolded me just now?" Grievous clenched her fists tightly. She saw God Fengzhao's blank expression as though everything had nothing to do with him. She sneered and said, "Do you need me to remind you? God Fengzhao. Didn't you just call me an old virgin? You even said that I could only be a little wife even if I gave up the entire Alicia Academy." This, Alice and the other members of the Knight Corps were all stunned. They bit their lips, and their shoulders trembled. They wanted to laugh but didn't dare to. Old virgin. This god Fengzhao is indeed the reincarnation of a pervert. His ability to scold people is truly amazing. The members of the Knight Corps all looked at God Fengzhao with admiration. "You dare to talk about the Dean like that? Even if you had 100 lives, it wouldn't be enough." Serves him right. The Dean is right. We were too lenient. Alice shouted coldly. Originally, she was still feeling guilty for beating up God Fengzhao for no reason. However, after hearing Grievous' explanation, her guilt instantly vanished. Instead, she felt that she had been too lenient on him. Wouldn't such a person deserve to be beaten to death? Nonsense. Hearing Grievous' explanation, God Fengzhao jumped up and shouted angrily, "This is a fallacy. Although I hate you, I will never call you an old virgin. Anyway, this has nothing to do with me." God Fengzhao hurriedly cleared his name. He knew Grievous's temper. This old witch was definitely not a kind person. Especially with her furious appearance, she must have been thoroughly angered. Not to mention that it was not God Fengzhao who did it. Even if God Fengzhao really called her an old virgin, at this dangerous moment, he absolutely couldn't admit it even if he was beaten to death. Otherwise, he might be cut into 8 pieces at any time and killed to silence him. That's right. God Fengzhao suddenly recalled Dustless's back view and the conversation not long ago. Suddenly, it was as if he had grasped onto the only life-saving straw. He calmly explained, "This is definitely done by Dustless. Previously, he even said that he wanted to control my body to attack some people." "Is that so?" Then, Grievous's attitude was cold, and her eyes were as calm as an ancient well. She was as quiet as a pool of stagnant water, as if she had already expected deity Ding Feng to say this. It was really done by that stinking brat. His eyes are very strange. God Feng Zhao emphasized again. I need evidence. Do you understand evidence? Grievous lowered her head and looked at God Feng Zhao, who was trying his best to explain himself. She said expressionlessly, if there is no evidence, I can treat it as someone trying to frame you. Isn't that right, Alice? That's right, Sir Dean. Everything requires witnesses and material evidence. Not a single one can be missing. You can't judge Dustless based on God Feng Zhao's words alone. That's not fair. Alice's tone was solemn. She didn't show any favoritism. I framed you. Hearing this, God Feng Zhao only felt despair. He had been abandoned by the Almighty God. Clearly, it was that bastard Dustless who framed him, but now, the tables had turned. He had wronged Dustless. Deity Feng Zhao's old tears flowed down his cheeks, expressing that he had nothing left to live for. It seems that there is no evidence to prove your innocence. Grievous's gaze was extremely cold. She glanced at God Feng Zhao and finally sighed. God Feng Zhao, from now on, you are no longer a student of the Elven Academy. Why? God Feng Zhao was stunned for a moment before he asked in confusion. The reason is simple. You have been expelled. Was he fired? If this sentence was said by someone else, it wouldn't be intimidating. However, when it was said by Grievous, the dean, it was extremely intimidating. No one dared to doubt its authenticity. It was just like an order from an emperor. Once it was said, it would definitely be carried out at all costs. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:16. Especially that sentence, which village are you from, bumpkin? Dustless was seriously hurt. He never thought that one day, he would be treated as a country bumpkin. He couldn't help but ask himself, am I outdated, or are you city people too playful? You misunderstood me. Dustless was depressed for a while and explained, I'm just thirsty. However, sadly, Dustless was taken away by this chick before he could finish his sentence. Are you going to say that you came to buy juice to quench your thirst, and then you happened to see me being molested, so you saved me? Don't use this kind of old-fashioned plot. It will affect my mood, or else I will underestimate your IQ. Priscilla waved her hand with a look of disdain, while Dustless was petrified. Am I really too old to keep up with the times? Dustless's eyes flickered, and for the first time, he questioned his taste. To be honest, I already have a suitable candidate to support. Dustless was too lazy to talk nonsense and said bluntly, as a candidate for the throne, you should know Amelia, right? She's the girl that Roswell recommended. In fact, I'm her knight. Priscilla looked at Dustless in astonishment, and immediately said with a tone of worship, I really have sharp eyes. I felt that you're different, and it seems that it's true. Hold on, Dustless interrupted Priscilla and said snappily, you just said that I'm a country bumpkin from the countryside, and now you're changing your words. The speed at which you change your face makes me look down on your IQ. No, this concubine has a discerning eye. Priscilla's face didn't turn red, and the degree of shamelessness made Dustless blush with shame. Come here, Amelia. At the same time, Kaitsuki Subaru suddenly dragged Amelia over. She happened to see Dustless and Priscilla talking, and she also heard the content of their conversation. Therefore, Kaitsuki Subaru decisively pulled Amelia over, pointed at Dustless and said, Did you see that? That woman is also a candidate for the throne. Dustless, this bastard, may be jumping ship. No, it's impossible, right? Amelia's heart suddenly tightened, and she looked at Dustless with a little worry. To be honest, her mental support now was Dustless and Roswald. If Dustless defected, it would be a fatal blow to Amelia, and she may not be able to recover from then on. Impossible. Nothing is impossible. Kaitsuki Subaru exaggerated. She had been unhappy with Dustless for a long time. The two were destined to be mortal enemies, so she didn't have the slightest mercy to fan the flames. I tell you, any man can't resist the temptation of three things: money, beauty, and power. Kaitsuki Subaru's words flowed like a river, and she tried her best to fool her. If you don't believe me, you can wait and see. Dustless will definitely defect, otherwise, why would he contact another candidate for the throne? You are also being used, Amelia. That boy is going to rob you of your money, and then abandon you. Regardless of whether these words were true or not, Amelia was still very nervous. How about it, are you willing to join me? The Amelia you are talking about is the silver-haired half-goblin girl, right? She is a controversial existence, and you may be despised if you follow her. It's better to join me, and you can get everything you want. Priscilla promised a lot of benefits, including the money, beauty, and power that Kaitsuki Subaru mentioned before. All of them were mercilessly promised to Dustless. Because when Dustless attacked just now, she judged that the person in front of her was extraordinary at first glance. Sacrificing some benefits to win a powerful ally was not a loss for Priscilla. No, I don't care about these things. Dustless shook his head. He had lived for hundreds of years. What kind of beauty had he not seen? Which of the female confidants in the system wasn't a heavenly beauty, a beauty that could captivate birds and beasts? Money was meaningless to Dustless. As for power, it was ridiculous to him. In the past, every time Dustless ruled a world, he was the black hand behind the scenes controlling the whole world. The gods in the sky trembled at his feet, and the gods he slaughtered were countless. Even the whole planet was afraid of Dustless. Standing at such a height, what power did Dustless need? It was ridiculous. Is it ridiculous? Priscilla frowned and looked at the smiling Dustless, full of displeasure. Don't people live in this world for material things? Could it be that what I said was wrong? That is indeed the case, but there are always exceptions to everything. Dustless did not deny it, and looked at the girl with a smile, without any intention of ridicule. In short, this girl wanted to win him over, and did not have any ulterior motives. Our thinking is too different. I don't do things for any benefits, it's all on the spur of the moment, including this time helping Amelia to win the throne. In the end, it was just too boring, and I wanted to kill time. Dustless said frankly, his face magnanimous. You. Fine, I have nothing to say to that. The corner of Priscilla's mouth twitched a few times. So Dustless helped Amelia to participate in the king's selection because he was too bored. As for the matter of relying on you, forget it. I am very grateful that you value me so much, but... Dustless paused slightly, and said seriously, but since I have promised Amelia, I will fulfill my promise. Sometimes, people live not to enjoy the unprecedented material life, but to have a clear conscience. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:17. A clear conscience. In the eyes of others, this reason might be laughable, but for some reason, Priscilla's heart trembled, and she suddenly fell silent. She suddenly realized that her vision in the past seemed to be a little narrow. Living in the world, one didn't necessarily have to pursue the supreme position of king. Just as Wu Qin had said, one just had to have a clear conscience about some things, and it was enough to live one's own wonderful life. Moreover, since ancient times, emperors had always been alone, and their lives might end up in a dead end. Sometimes, giving up some things might be a little painful at the time, but there was always a gain, and in the future, there would always be more rewards. Also, Amelia's face suddenly appeared in his mind, and Dustless said softly, I have to admit, although Amelia is sometimes a little childish and naive, she has a persevering heart. I believe that there will be a day when she succeeds. In short, as long as she doesn't leave me, I won't abandon her. As for the identity of a fairy, it's really laughable. If those people who despise Amelia know about my past, they will probably think that the so-called witch of jealousy is a kind rabbit, too gentle. Dustless said as if he was joking and serious. Others might scoff at these words, but it was an undeniable fact. After all, when Dustless was not very strong, he often used infinite tsukimi to punish a large world, treating everyone as nourishment for his strength, and not letting any living creature go. Compared to Dustless, what was a mere witch of jealousy? In that case, I respect your choice. After a moment of silence, Priscilla smiled and said generously, if you need my help in the future, feel free to come to me. Then, without caring about Dustless's thoughts, she skipped away. This woman, don't tell me that some nerve in her brain is broken. But it's good that you can get over it. Dustless had a strange expression. The girl in front of him changed too quickly, so much so that he was in a daze. Thud, 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 thud. At this moment, Dustless suddenly heard the sound of footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw a beautiful white figure hugging him from behind. Amelia. Dustless looked at the white figure in astonishment. He lowered his head and saw that the person hugging him tightly was the weeping Amelia. What kind of good news is it? Why are you so excited? Dustless scratched Amelia's nose. He wasn't used to being hugged so tightly by her. His waist felt like it was going to break. I didn't mean to eavesdrop on your conversation, but I heard everything you said just now. Amelia's face was filled with excitement as she rubbed her cheeks against Dustless's chest. Blushing, she said, from now on, you're my family, okay? Family. Hearing this, Dustless's face was indescribably strange, and he immediately waved his hand and said, let's talk about this kind of trivial matter later. Where did Roswell go? This is not a small matter. This is the most important matter. But Amelia stubbornly shook her head and seriously repeated, this is even more important than the royal selection. All along, the only person who accompanied Amelia was Parker. Now that there was one more person, Dustless, she was very excited. What an innocent little girl. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry about this. He just touched Amelia's head and nodded in approval. If they're a family, then so be it. Dustless didn't care. Anyway, in the future, Amelia wouldn't cause other people to starve to death. I suddenly feel that I'm no longer a person abandoned and hated by this world. Amelia hugged Dustless tightly and rubbed her face against him again and again. She even wished that she could integrate Dustless into her body. Slap. I'm such a king idiot. On the other side, Kai Yuamao, who was dazzled by the scene, was so angry that he cursed. He wanted to cry but had no tears. He slapped himself so hard that it bled. Kai Yuamao grimaced in pain. He originally wanted to catch Amelia in the act, but who knew that his actions would directly give Amelia to Dustless. Looking at Amelia's blissful face, Kai Yuamao wanted to kill himself. This was really shooting himself in the foot. Even his heart was smashed into pieces. Damn Dustless. This guy wouldn't be doing it on purpose, right? Kai Yuamao's face was gloomy. He was a little tempted by Priscilla's offer. After all, as she said, people lived for beautiful women, money, and power. In the face of these conditions, no one could be at ease. At least, Kai Yuamao was sure that he would be tempted by such a generous offer. But Dustless was like a rock. He didn't take the bait at all. No matter what the offer was, he wouldn't be moved. He didn't even blink. Brat, you won't die if you don't ask for it. You asked for it this time. I wasn't interested in Amelia, but you pushed her to me. TSK, TSK. What a good guy. Dustless glanced at the miserable Kai Yuemao and secretly scolded him for being an idiot. He asked for it. Help to clean the house, clean the carriage, and pick up girls. Anne. Kai Yuemao, I suddenly feel that you are not as annoying as before. Maybe people like you are born to serve as a foil to me. Wu Chen's words entered Kai Yuemao's ears. Only Kai Yuemao could hear it clearly due to the special treatment. Plop. Kai Yuemao couldn't take the blow anymore. He rolled his eyes and fainted. All his efforts were for Dustless. How could he not be angry? Especially Dustless's "I want to thank you" expression, which made Kai Yuemao's heart beat faster. In the end, he couldn't withstand a single blow and fainted. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:18. Although this episode was a huge blow to Kaituki Subaru, the relationship between Dustless and Amelia had improved because of him. This was all thanks to the great philanthropist Kaituki Subaru. If it weren't for him, it wouldn't have been so smooth. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, a few hours had passed. The King's Selection feast was about to begin. The most obvious thing was that the city was heavily guarded. The big shots, as well as many knights, had all appeared. Even powerful knights such as Reinhardt were included. Roswald, who had disappeared before, finally appeared, and his request was very simple. Amelia and Dustless went to the palace together to participate in this unique feast. Why don't I have a share? Kaituki Subaru, who had just woken up, was very angry. He found that he had completely become a foil, especially at this critical moment. Not to mention being a foil to Dustless, he didn't even have the qualifications to participate. This was blatant disdain. Boy, don't you understand? You are a groom, do you understand? Pointing to the earth dragon outside the window, Dustless smiled and handed Kaituki Subaru a bag. Regardless of his livid face, he smiled kindly and said, "Well, I'll give it to you. After all, the earth dragon is our means of transportation. You can't lose it, it's much more useful than you." Kaituki Subaru's face turned green when he heard this. He only felt that there was a stuffy breath in his lungs. He was in a bad state and felt that he was about to explode. What made Kaituki Subaru most angry was that this bastard actually compared him with an animal. What was worse was that this bastard devalued him to the point that he was not even as good as an animal. But facing Wu Qin, Kaituki Subaru was helpless. Not only was she inferior to him in terms of strength and skills, but she was also inferior to him in terms of wisdom. Wu Qin even wanted to gain something without risking anything. Amelia took the initiative to throw herself into his arms. Every time he thought that because of his own calculation, Amelia took the initiative to throw herself into Dustless's arms, and her cheeks rubbed against Dustless's arms, Kaituki Subaru had a constipated expression and wanted to slap himself a few times. Rosval, in desperation, Kaitsuki Subaru could only look at Rosval for help, longing for the warmth this guy gave him, giving him a little hope so that his dreams would not always be shattered. "I'm sorry, Lord Pleiades." Roswald, who was regarded as a light of hope, shook his head. Although he sympathized with Kaitsuki Subaru's current situation, he couldn't help her. He showed a helpless expression and said, "You are just a servant. If I take you to participate in the King's Selection, I will only bring shame to Lady Amelia. But Dustless, that bastard, is also a servant." Kaituki Subaru roared unwillingly with red eyes. After being repeatedly slapped in the face by Dustless, he had long gone crazy. When he mentioned Dustless, his face was full of hatred. Not to mention that several times during the reincarnation of death, the culprit was dustless and he was killed by him in various cruel ways. Keiichi Subaru had long wanted to bite dustless to death. Moreover, what made Keiichi Subaru collapse the most was that dustless always did not follow the routine. For example, according to the script before the reincarnation of death, he should have beaten Julius, but in the real world, dustless did not do so, and all kinds of plots were disrupted by him. No, dustless is not a servant now. Speaking of this, Roswald's mouth twitched, and his face was full of displeasure. Looking at the smiling dustless, he always felt that this guy was laughing at him. His face was a little ugly as he said, "Lady Amelia has recognized dustless as her brother." So what, they are not related by blood. Does dustless think that he can climb up the social ladder and become a candidate for the throne? Keiichi Subaru sneered. This is not the case, but the identity has changed. Speaking of this, Roswald also felt that the world was changeable, and then under the surprised gaze of Keiichi Subaru, he said respectfully, "Lord Dustless." Ha! Roswald's greeting of Lord Wuchin made Seinue Mao Lei's heart skip a beat. She opened her mouth wide in disbelief and could even swallow a fist. Roswald called Dustless as Lord Dustless. Was there a mistake? Dustless was the housekeeper in his house, but now a family master bowed to the housekeeper and called Dustless as Lord, which was a big blow to Keiichi Subaru. Now the identities of the two were obviously reversed. What, you called Dustless as? Slap. Before Keiichi Subaru's voice fell, a cold slap greeted his face, and his face was suddenly bloody. On the right side of his face, a huge palm print was clearly visible. Even his teeth were loosened from the beating. And the person who did this was the grave and stern Wuchin. You dare to hit me? Keiichi Subaru was stunned. He did not expect Dustless to be so arrogant. He dared to hit him in front of Roswald. So what? I just want to hit you. Dustless sneered and looked at Roswald and asked, "This bastard called me a brat. How should I deal with him? I am now Amelia's brother." You deserve it. Roswald's eyes were fierce, and he also gave Keiichi Subaru a slap. The sound was very loud, and there were blood-red palm prints on both cheeks. Plop. Keiichi Subaru was so angry that he fainted again. In fact, Roswald just gave Keiichi Subaru a slap, which was already a light punishment. It was not too much to drive him out of the house, but Roswald still had some use for him, so he protected Keiichi Subaru. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:19. After this kid fainted again, no one cared about him. Only Amelia, who couldn't stand it, took good care of him. After all, they were acquaintances. After settling the trivial matters of Keiichi Subaru, Dustless and the rest slowly left and rushed to the heavily guarded palace. The king's selection was imminent. At this moment, the palace was completely surrounded by knights. Members of the Knight Order were everywhere in the palace. Every one of them was as straight as a javelin. The security is very tight. Dustless looked around. Along the way, almost all the places were guarded. Everyone's expression was meticulous and strict. After all, this is the interior of the palace. The security is definitely tighter. This is related to the reputation of the kingdom. Now that it is the king's selection, I heard that all the members of the Knight Order are here. Roswald explained and looked at Dustless with a hint of warning. He slowly said, "Take note, there are many experts today. Don't mess around." Roswald understood Dustless's temper. If anyone were to provoke him, he would definitely not give them any face. He would definitely turn the world upside down and Amelia would definitely be implicated. He was still counting on Amelia to slay the dragon after obtaining the throne. What would he do if Dustless messed up his plans? You are making me sound like an ignorant child. Dustless couldn't help but roll his eyes. He was too lazy to bother with Roswald. He walked straight ahead and saw a huge stone door in front of him. It was engraved with a magnificent pattern and there were a few knights standing beside it. Is that Lady Amelia? Amelia's appearance was too eye-catching. She was the only silver-haired half-fairy in the entire kingdom. The knights guarding the door didn't ask much. They immediately opened the stone door and allowed Amelia and the rest to pass through. Creak. The heavy stone door was slowly pushed open and a ray of bright golden light shone through. It was as though they had arrived at another world. After passing through the door, a huge hall came into view. It was filled with people. The Knight Order and civil officials were standing in different positions. Amelia's appearance instantly attracted everyone's attention. Is this Lady Amelia? As expected, he came to participate in the king's selection. I heard that it was Border Warlord who recommended him to participate in the royal selection. Who's the man behind him? I don't think I've seen it before. Clearly, Amelia was quite famous. Many people were looking at her in surprise, their eyes darting from side to side as if they wanted to see through her. Amelia was clearly a little nervous in the face of countless gazes. She instinctively took a step back, and her heel just happened to step on Dustless behind her. Amelia, remember, this is your stage today. There's no need to be nervous. You're a candidate for the king's choice, and your status is much higher than this group of people. Dustless patted Amelia's shoulder with a warm smile. This guy is here as well. And he came together with Lady Amelia. Could it be that Dustless has become Lady Amelia's knight? In the square formation of the knight's camp, an obscure gaze was cleverly concealed as it circled around Dustless. Seeing that the two of them were familiar with each other, it was full of doubts. This person had fiery red hair, and his hair was as messy as weeds. His appearance was handsome, and his fair face was cleaner than many young girls. At his waist was a unique divine sword, dragon sword. Without a doubt, the person who secretly muttered to himself was Reinhardt, who Dustless had met once before. Humph, a guy who dares to blaspheme the way of the knights, I will not let you off easily. Other than Reinhardt, there was another person who was staring at Dustless. It was Julius, who had a conflict with him before. Still can't forget about me. Dustless shifted his gaze. Although the knights were all wearing the same uniform, Julius's head of purple hair was too dazzling, and he stood out from the crowd. He was also full of hostility toward Dustless, so he could be seen at a glance. Everyone. Before this king's selection begins, please forgive me for being rude. Julius' hoarse voice reached everyone's ears. Everyone looked up at him, wondering what this guy's purpose was. He should be targeting me, right? Catching the resentment in Julius's eyes, Dustless said to himself helplessly, didn't they say that people who deeply believe in the way of the knights have a sense of justice? Why does this guy not let me go? Does he think I'm easy to bully? Lady Amelia, please forgive my rudeness. Julius walked to Amelia and bowed slightly to apologize. Then, he bypassed her body and walked toward Dustless. His pair of golden eyes instantly became piercingly cold. Julius, come back here. Seeing that this guy was going to cause trouble for Dustless, Reinhardt, who reacted quickly pulled him back. However, the latter was not tactful and forcibly broke free. Reinhardt, this is a grudge between me and this guy. Previously, he blasphemed the spirit of the knights, which is an insult to us. Are you going to protect this sinner? The sword in my hand will never agree. Julius was very stubborn. When he said that Dustless had blasphemed the way of the knights, all the knights turned to look at Dustless in an instant. They were full of hostility, as if they had been specially rehearsed. It was very standard. I said before, don't let me see you again, but you still came. Julius leaned close to Dustless's ear and said coldly, "As long as you announce that you give up becoming Lady Amelia's knight now, I can spare you this time." Dustless was not angry. Facing countless gazes, he was calm and composed. He asked curiously, "Can I ask why?" "Because I can't accept a knight who doesn't even have a sword to protect Lady Amelia. You are too unqualified. Also, you have blasphemed the way of the knights and trampled on my dignity. I can't forgive you for that," Julius said in a deep voice, clenching his fists. "P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates." Chapter 22-20. Team Up. The girls were stunned by Dustless's suggestion. They looked at each other and saw the satisfaction in each other's eyes. It seemed that they were quite tempted by Dustless's suggestion. But wouldn't that be too good for you, kid? Perhaps it was because she had been with Dustless for a long time, but Claire's mind had become smarter. She quickly realized the problem. "Then you can catch all three of us in one fell swoop." Ha! Wuchen didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard this. Although he often took advantage of these few people, it was also on the surface of his mouth. He just felt bored and teased everyone to play. So far, he had not touched these few women. If he had to say who he was intimate with, it would be the Dean, Grievous. "Don't take my kindness for granted. Since you think that I have other plans, then don't team up with me. I'm not interested in that competition anyway," Dustless said indifferently. After all, it was just a child's fight. Not interested. Hearing Wu Chen's lazy attitude, Alice was instantly dissatisfied. As a man, and an extremely rare male elf user, you should know how to make progress. Learning is like sailing against the current. If you don't advance, you will fall behind. You must have a faraway vision, instead of wasting your youth in boredom. Dustless's expression was rather strange. Why does Alice's words sound like, "Alice, Dustless isn't your fiancé. Do you still want to be a henpecked husband?" The intelligent Linslet also felt the difference in Alice's words. She immediately exposed Alice without holding back. "Your family isn't suitable for Dustless. On the contrary, our family is more suitable. This matter ends here. You girls are really troublesome. Only the four of us are in a team." Dustless interrupted the three girls' argument in time. If he let them continue, he didn't know how long it would take. Alicia Elven Academy. After getting rid of the claws of the three girls, Dustless strolled alone in the beautiful academy. His mood was unusually calm. Dustless, Kun came out alone. Claire and the others will definitely be angry if they find out. Esther held the ice cream in his hands with a blissful expression. "Brat, don't talk nonsense when you're eating." Dustless rubbed Esther's head. In reality, he didn't want to wander around, but he was always surrounded by Claire and the others, making him speechless and conflicted. Claire and Linslet seemed to be the opposite of each other. Whenever they met, they would quarrel until their faces turned red, not to mention Alice. It was already a blessing from the heavens that they didn't fight. That's the best. I like quiet places too. Esther nodded her head like a little chick. Licking her ice cream, she complained, "The three of them have almost snatched Mr. Dustless away. I don't even have time to spend with you. Esther, you really don't know how to be shy." Dustless rubbed Esther's head. "Dustless, Kun, look." Esther suddenly pointed at the entrance of Alicia Academy. Dustless also looked over and saw Dean Grievous standing in front of a carriage. Grievous is welcoming him personally. Who's putting on such airs? This is interesting. Out of curiosity, Dustless also walked over. Since he had nothing to do, he might as well join in the fun and kill some time. Oh right, could it be that the little girl is here? If I think about it carefully, it should be around this time. And she's here for God Fengzhou. Dustless lowered his head and pondered. An exquisite-looking girl appeared in his mind. She had a head of beautiful purple hair and an extremely majestic cleavage. She was not inferior to Grivace at all. Moreover, she had a noble and refined temperament, like a beautiful budding flower. This person was Fianna Leoldija. Dean, long time no see. How are you? A pleasant voice came from the front. Dustless also subconsciously raised his head. As expected, he guessed correctly. A girl with long purple hair personally greeted Grivace. Princess, you're too polite. Grivace just nodded slightly. When she was about to speak, she suddenly saw Dustless leisurely walking over. She immediately frowned and pondered. This kid is here again. I hope he won't cause trouble for me. Princess, Fianna's eyes dimmed a little. A bitter smile flashed across her eyes. This title was too sarcastic to her. After all, it was all in the past. Dean, I heard that a male elf called God Fengzhou came to the academy a few days ago. Can you bring me to see him? Fianna was indeed someone who had an affair with God Fengzhou. She immediately thought of the young man that she had been thinking about day and night. For a moment, she was a little absent-minded, as if she was thinking of the past. A gentle smile appeared on her face. This is so unfair. That brat, where did his charm come from to make people fall for him? It's all the main character aura. Dustless, who had rushed over, was speechless. Of all things to hear, why did she have to hear about that brat's romantic debt? Miss, you might not know. That God Fengzhou is simply a scum, a pervert, and a pervert. Without waiting for Grivace to explain, Dustless directly opened his mouth and used all the words that Claire used to scold him. He raised his voice and said, that little tortoise called God Fengzhou did all kinds of bad things and was extremely shameless. In the end, he was expelled because he scolded Dean. Little tortoise. Hearing Dustless calling God Fengzhou that, Grivace didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She caught the evil smile in his eyes and could only silently mourn for God Fengzhou in her heart. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-21. Who are you? Fianna raised her nose slightly and looked at Dustless with extreme dissatisfaction. Although she didn't know where this guy came from, hearing that the person she liked was insulted, she was instantly unhappy. Although men were sometimes extremely protective, women were no exception. Especially when her lover was insulted by an inexplicable guy, she naturally wouldn't let Dustless off easily. Especially since Fianna had yearned for God Fengzhou day and night for several years. Now that Dustless dared to call God Fengzhou a little turtle egg, how could Fianna ignore it? Obviously, it was impossible. Next time I hear you say bad things about him, I definitely won't let you off. Fianna's beautiful eyes opened slightly as she stared at Dustless. Her tone was extremely unfriendly, and she even clenched her fist as if to warn him. Even if it wasn't because of Grievous, she had already started to beat Dustless up. Won't let me off. That's interesting, but people who dare to talk to me like that have either turned into a skeleton or simply become my person, Dustless said with a faint smile. Become your person. Fianna was stunned when she heard that, and immediately understood. Her face was full of disgust. So you're gay. No wonder you care so much about God Fengzhou. Are you afraid that I'll snatch him away? Ha ha ha. At the end, Fianna laughed delicately. Bullshit. Dustless's old face darkened, and he scolded, of course I'll kill all the men. If it's a woman, if she's sincere, I don't mind taking in a bed-warming maid, such as you. You. How dare you? Fianna looked coldly at Dustless. Dustless was the first person who dared to talk to her like that. Hearing that, Dustless just smiled. Looking at the angry Fianna, he gradually became interested. Miss, I want to ask how you plan to deal with me. I'm a person who doesn't know how to talk, and I'm extremely annoying. If you have any dissatisfaction, don't be merciful. Just beat me up, but I'll definitely resist. Fianna opened her mouth wide and looked at Dustless in disbelief. It was the first time she had seen such a strange person. How dare you? Fianna was stunned, but the housekeeper who was driving the carriage for her couldn't stand it anymore. He said coldly, "Where did this brat come from? Hurry up and scram." Without even looking at him, Dustless said coldly, "Humph. Do you know who I am?" Fianna coldly looked at Dustless, then looked at Grievous with hostility and sneered, "Dean, are the students of Alicia Elven Academy so ill-mannered?" Grievous frowned and was a little dissatisfied with Fianna. She couldn't possibly categorize all the students of the Elven Academy as shameless just because of Dustless, right? Are you trying to say that I'm shameless? That's right, I'm that shameless. What can you do to me? Dustless asked casually. You're invincible. Fianna's eyes widened. This bastard took in all the good and bad words. I can see it now. You even dare to lay your hands on such a young girl. What a scumbag. Looking at Estelle who was beside Dustless, Fianna loudly mocked. Ha! Dustless was confused. He followed Fianna's gaze and looked at Estelle. He was speechless. People say that girls with big breasts have no brains. I didn't believe it before, but now I do. All the nutrients in your brain have grown to your breasts. No wonder you're so stupid. Sigh. Even with Headmistress Grose's temperament, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. She rolled her eyes at Dustless, clearly implying that he was so good at teasing others. Where did he learn this from? This bastard. Fianna was angry. Her little face was red from Dustless's words. Even her breathing became heavy. All right, let's stop here. Follow me to the academy first. We'll talk about other things later, Grievous said softly. It would be a tragedy if they fought here. Tisk, Dustless curled his lips. He naturally understood that Grievous was giving Fianna a way out. Let's wait and see. I'll make sure you never forget me. Fianna took a deep look at Dustless. It was as if she wanted to remember this face forever. There's no need for the future. If you have time, you can come to my dorm now. I guarantee that you'll hate me for the rest of your life. Dustless was afraid that Fianna couldn't understand what he meant. The veins on Fianna's forehead bulged. If Grievous didn't pull her away, she would have flipped out on the spot. This bastard was too arrogant. It was the first time in her life that someone dared to ridicule her so unscrupulously. Dustless, Kuin will definitely find trouble with her again, Estelle said thoughtfully. Why? Dustless glanced at Estelle and asked with a smile. You can't bear to look at anything that's related to Fingzhou celestial being. This is a common occurrence, Esther said seriously, as if he was used to it. Is that so? Dustless stopped in his tracks. He touched his chin thoughtfully and then nodded slightly. It seemed like that was indeed the case. That's right, I remember Claire mentioned that the team needed 5 people. Why don't we pull this proud princess in? Dustless's lips curled up slightly, looking extremely evil. Why did you choose her? Estelle asked with a frown. It's simple. It's because this girl has feelings for Fingzhou. I want her to join the team and torture Fingzhou together. Lovers becoming enemies. This is really interesting. Dustless smiled evilly. That makes sense. Estelle nodded innocently. Unknowingly, she had been led astray by Dustless. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-22. The scene was incomparably stifling. No one had thought that a solemn king selection would end up in a mess because of Dustless's relationship. Thump. 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 Ferret. Dustless's eyes rippled. He was not surprised by Ferret's appearance, but the brat behind him pissed him off. Kaiue Subaru. You stinking brat, you're really haunting me. Did you come here to embarrass yourself? Seeing the cowering Keiichi Subaru behind Ferret, Dustless couldn't help but frown. This brat was really not someone easy to deal with. In order to pursue Amelia, he was also going all out. Why didn't they fight? Kaiue Subaru was conflicted when he saw the oppressive atmosphere. The reason was that this was not part of his backtracking storyline. He still clearly remembered that after Dustless and Amelia came to the palace together, because someone insulted Amelia, Dustless got rid of all the knights and nobles in one fell swoop. It was also because of this incident that Amelia felt that Dustless was a bloodthirsty person and became much colder to him. After all, Amelia was still a pure and kind girl. Kaiue Subaru rushed here because after Dustless's massacre, Amelia felt that he was a stranger. At this time, Amelia was at her weakest and he might be able to take advantage of her weakness. But why are these bastards still alive? Kaiue Subaru was frustrated when he thought of this. He felt that Death Return was a rubbish skill. Things in the real world and backtracking were always very different. Brother, we meet again. Ferret smiled brightly when he saw Dustless. After all, if it was not for Dustless who saved her when she was besieged by Gut Hunter Ailusa, she and Lord Rum would have been dead by now. Dustless smiled and nodded. He walked up to Kaiue Subaru and said coldly, "Brat, why are you here as a servant? Go back and feed the horses. It's none of your business." Dustless was fine when he did not speak, but Kaiue Subaru was furious. He said unkindly, "You bastard. How dare you hold back when Amelia was being humiliated? Are you still a man? If I were you, I would kill them all and wash Amelia's." Kaiue Subaru was filled with hatred. If Dustless Amelia decided to go on a killing Amelia would not be able to take it. Amelia and Amelia. Amelia. Hee hee. Keiichi Subaru laughed sinisterly. As long as Wu Qin and Amelia fell out, he could take advantage of the opportunity to snatch Amelia's charcoal back. I want to thank you. You really pointed out the right path for me. Dustless Subaru was enlightened. He looked at Kaiue Subaru with gratitude. Don't thank me. If you really want to thank me, then kill these bastards. Kaiue Subaru looked generous, but his eyes were full of gloating. No. I think you misunderstood me. Dustless Subaru shook his finger and said softly, "Before you asked me to kill them, I did want to kill them. But now that you asked me to kill them, I won't do it." Hearing this, Keiichi Subaru was confused and asked, "Why is that?" "Why? There's no reason. I don't know what you're planning, but you're always scheming against me. If I kill them, you might come up with some bad idea." Dustless Subaru explained softly, and then he said, "Anyway, if you want me to kill them, then they have to live. If you want me to go east, then I have to go west. You're really..." Kaiue Subaru's face darkened. He didn't expect Dustless Subaru to be so cautious. "Humph. If you don't do it, then I'll force you. Don't think I'm afraid of you. I won't even blink if you kill me." After countless reincarnations, Kaiu's Subaru was numb. Death was nothing to him. As long as he could trick dustless Subaru once, he wouldn't mind even if he had to reincarnate 10 times. Dustless Subaru had killed him many times in the past reincarnations. Kaiu's Subaru was angry with Dustless. Even if Dustless didn't trouble him, Kaiu's Subaru would never let Dustless go. Hey! I say, you bunch of idiots. How dare you mock Lady Amelia? Are you tired of living? Kaiu's Subaru glared at Julius and the others without any fear. Anyway, he had nothing to lose. He didn't care if he angered these people and got himself killed. As long as he saw dustless Subaru being beaten up, he would be satisfied even if he was killed once. After all, he could be resurrected. After all, Kaiu's Subaru had been defeated by Dustless countless times, and he hadn't made a comeback yet. Well. There are more and more arrogant guys these days. Julius's eyes were gloomy. Dustless Subaru was riding on his head. After all, Dustless had shown his strength just now. Even if he tried his best, he wouldn't be able to defeat him. But who was Kaiu's Subaru? How dare he provoke him? Did he really think that he was made of mud and could step on him whenever he wanted to? Is this idiot trying to make enemies for me? Dustless Subaru immediately understood Kaiu's Subaru's intention. He smiled and didn't say anything, waiting for this guy to make a fool of himself. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-23. So you're really weak. Since he was taller than Fianna, Dustless was looking down at her. Coupled with his contemptuous tone, he was like a frivolous young master. His tone was full of contempt and disdain. You don't get carried away. Hearing Dustless's words, Fianna's pretty face turned deep red. She was extremely embarrassed. Her sneak attack had failed and she was caught alive. Especially when Alice, the leader of the Night Order, was watching silently from the side. Fianna had no way to defend herself. Sigh, you're really weak. Dustless sighed again. You stinking brat. The veins on Fianna's forehead bulged. I know I'm weak, but do you have to say it twice? My ears aren't deaf. Alice, you saw it too. This chick didn't try to assassinate me. How should I deal with her? Dustless looked at Alice and then looked at Fianna with deep meaning. His expression was full of schadenfreude. This. Of course it's a big problem. Alice also looked at Fianna with ridicule. She deliberately cleared her throat. In a big way, this is nonsense. I just wanted to test this guy's strength. Without giving Alice a chance to speak, Fianna hurriedly said, after all, participating in the Elven Sword Dance Festival requires great strength. I just wanted to test this guy's strength. You tested my strength. Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but laugh. He felt that this was the most ridiculous joke. He asked again, then Miss Fianna, what did you test? Fianna was speechless at Dustless's question. She thought for a while and then smiled. You're very strong. I'm very satisfied with your strength, so I decided to join your team. Ha! This sudden change startled not only Claire and the other two girls, but also Dustless. He looked at Fianna with a slightly stunned expression. He could clearly see traces of nervousness in her eyes. Looks like this guy also joined on a whim. What's his motive? Dustless frowned slightly. While he was lost in his reverie, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his waist. Are you crazy? Why did you pinch me? Unhappily glaring at Claire, Dustless was about to reprimand her when he saw Linslet and Alice looking at him with dissatisfaction. That resentful gaze was clearly saying, you went out to attract bees and butterflies again. What does it have to do with me? This woman obviously joined suddenly. What does it have to do with me? Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. There was nothing between him and Fianna. Moreover, this woman hated him greatly because of God Fengzhou. She was using all sorts of methods to take revenge on him. Now that she had suddenly joined in, there was definitely a problem. However, at this moment, Dustless suddenly felt a soft body. Her entire body was soft and emitted a strong fragrance. Dustless subconsciously pinched her. Moan, a soft moan suddenly sounded. Dustless was startled. He opened his eyes wide and looked over. The figure that had thrown herself into his arms was Fianna. Don't touch me, Fianna looked at Dustless affectionately. She was bashful. Her face was deep red, and her watery eyes were like silk. When they looked at each other, they would feel an electric shock and numbness. What do you want? Let me tell you, I'm still a decent man. You'd better not act rashly. Dustless moved his lips. This girl called Fianna hated him. Now that she had thrown herself into his arms, she must be up to something. Dustless was silent for a moment. Soon after, he opened his mouth and said, Miss Fianna, you, Dustless, you bastard. You actually did it with a strange girl in public. You pervert. Alice's face was red. She had an expression that said, I can see through you. Soon after, she left angrily. Humph. Carol, let's go. It seems like my good intentions were treated as ill intent. Linslet also looked at Dustless unhappily and left angrily. As for Claire, she even lashed out with her whip. She even cursed, pervert, charcoal. This girl is very smart. She knows that these three women are jealous, so she purposely made eyes at me. She even joined this team to take revenge on me for bullying God Fengzhou. Dustless rarely looked at Fianna. He couldn't help but ask, You're already a beauty. Why are you asking for trouble for a mere trash? If you leave now, I can pretend that nothing happened. What nonsense are you talking about? What mere trash? I joined your team completely because I looked up to your figure. I was mesmerized the moment I saw you. Fianna playfully blinked her eyes. Her gaze was incomparably affectionate. She almost fell into Dustless's arms. Even Dustless could feel the heavy sphere. With such an ambiguous posture, not to mention the jealous Claire, even ordinary people would think that the two had a secret relationship. You don't believe me, do you? Dustless looked at Claire. Seeing her angry expression, Dustless felt even more innocent. Turn into charcoal. Claire disdained to talk nonsense with Dustless. The long whip in her hand lashed out with flames. It seemed that she really wanted to turn Dustless into charcoal. I can only knock you out temporarily. With a leap, Dustless appeared behind Claire without any warning as if he had traveled through space. Then, with a light chop, he knocked her out and placed her on the sofa. Little girl, I'll make you regret this. After covering Claire with a blanket to prevent her from catching a cold, Dustless walked over with a dark face. He had always been the one who tricked others. Now that he had been tricked by Fianna, his mood was extremely bad. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-24. Everyone thought that the matter had come to an end, but it was not. Not long after Kaitsuko left the palace, he was surrounded by a large group of knights. Hey! What do you want? Are you trying to rebel? Don't forget that I am Amelia's servant. If you dare to hit me, Amelia will not let you go. Kaitsuka panicked when he saw the knights glaring at him. He was trying to make trouble for Dustless, not himself. To put it bluntly, Kaitsuka's previous actions were to make trouble for Dustless, but these cowardly knights did not seem to have the guts to make trouble for Dustless. Do you think I am easy to bully? Kaitsuka guessed in his heart. He looked up at Julius and asked, do you dare to fight me? Your crime is punishable by death, but since you are Amelia's servant, let's have a duel with wooden swords. How about that? When Julius said this, his face was full of mockery and disdain. He did not even try to hide the disdain and contempt in his eyes. Do you think I don't dare? Kaitsuka was angry. If he chickened out at this time, not only would Amelia look down on him, but he would also look down on himself first. I agree. Bang! Just as Katsuki Subaru was about to agree to Julius's request, a black shadow suddenly flashed and gently kicked Katsuki Subaru away. Boom! Kaitsuka's body crashed into the wall, and the solid wall cracked. Who the hell did this? How dare you sneak attack me? Is it you knights? Kaitsuka roared angrily. His voice was a little sharp because of anger. I did it. Why? Do you want to beat me? Dustless lazily flashed in front of Kaitsuka and narrowed his eyes. If you don't like me, or even want to beat me up, I welcome you with open arms. It's a small world. Let's wait and see. Kaitsuka suddenly chickened out. He glared at Dustless fiercely and finally fell silent. After several rounds of reincarnation of death, Kaitsuka knew how powerful Dustless was. He could not even defeat Julius, let alone Dustless. Even if he was angry, he had to bow his head and admit defeat. What do you mean? It is very rude to disturb a duel between me and someone else. Julius frowned and looked at Wu Qin. His face was full of hostility. He insulted all of us. We must make this guy pay the price. I'm not interested in your grudges. Even if this kid is dead or alive, it has nothing to do with me. But... Dustless paused for a while and then said helplessly, this kid is in Amelia's camp after all. You beat him up and made him lose control of his bladder and bladder. Amelia is the one who lost face. Dustless's meaning was self-evident. Everyone could understand what he meant. After all, Kaitsuka was beaten up, and as the host, Amelia must be disgraced as well. You have to look at the owner before beating a dog. I can't turn a blind eye. Dustless's tone was lazy, but Julius and the others' faces changed slightly. His words were full of warning. You have to look at the owner before beating a dog. Kaitsuka's face darkened. The dog Dustless was talking about was him. He thought angrily, he is scolding me in another way. If you want to continue to challenge him, how about this? Dustless saw that Julius was persistent, so he stood in front of him and said indifferently, you can fight with me. I will stand still. If you can defeat me within 3 moves, I will apologize. How about that? And you can do whatever you want with me. Stand still. Julius and the others were stunned when they heard that. The so-called standing still meant that they did not take any counterattack and just stood there to be attacked by Julius. Julius' face turned ashen when he came back to his senses. He felt that he had been looked down upon. This was blatant disdain and contempt. The flames that had accumulated in his heart exploded. Do you think that you can defeat me by standing still? No, this needs to be corrected. Dustless shook his head and said calmly, people like you are not qualified to fight with me, but you have to challenge Kaitsuka. I can only reluctantly stand up and let you have 3 moves. To be honest, Dustless did not intend to duel with Julius. This guy was too weak, but he had to challenge Kaitsuka. No matter what, he was on Amelia's side. If he lost, it would be a disgrace to his master. I don't mean to look down on you. Dustless found that everyone in the Knight Regiment was looking at him angrily. The fire in their eyes was enough to melt the city wall. He said indifferently, I am just stating a fact. It is not too late to turn back now. At least you didn't lose, and it won't be so embarrassing. However, Dustless's words were fine. The moment he finished speaking, Julius agreed immediately. He was still alive. If he lowered his head now, he would never be able to raise his head again. Stand still. Is this guy going to be killed now? Everyone looked at Dustless mockingly. It was like an adult fighting with a child. If the adult stood still and let the child hit him, he could easily be killed. Hee, arrogant guy. You better be killed by Julius. Then, no one can stop me. Kaitsuka was very excited. He did not have the slightest gratitude. When Dustless said, look at the master before beating the dog, Kaitsuka wanted to swallow Dustless alive. If he was killed, Kaitsuka would definitely hold a party to celebrate. He believed that with his own ability, he could also make Amelia a king. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-25. Kaius Subaru's heart was full of joy. If it weren't for the fact that there were too many people and the situation wasn't suitable, he might have jumped up and clapped his hands. These days, he had been oppressed by Dustless, but he couldn't fight back. It was extremely difficult for him, as if he was walking on thin ice. This guy is too arrogant. He actually stood still and let Julius attack him. Does he think he is invincible? Kaius Subaru muttered to himself. After several reincarnations, he had some understanding of Julius's strength. He was very powerful. He believed that if Dustless stood still and didn't fight back, he would definitely be beaten up badly. I'll take Amelia with me to see how miserable you are after being beaten up. Who told you to show off? Kaius Subaru calculated in his heart, and a smug smile appeared on his face. In the huge martial arts field, the surrounding audience shouted passionately and cheered for Julius. Their voices were so loud that the ears of those who were 100 meters away were numb. In the center of the field, Julius held a sharp sword. His eyes were like torches. Almost all the knights were circling around him. He was as dazzling as the stars around the moon, as if the whole world revolved around him. As for Dustless, he was abandoned. Even if someone looked at him a few times, their face was full of ridicule. What nonsense! An angry voice could be heard from the spectators' seats. Hee. Yes, Dustless is too much of a troublemaker. Kaius Subaru immediately nodded. As a traveler from another world, he was also a wily old fox. He had studied the way of picking up girls very deeply. When a girl was angry about something, he would definitely speak ill of the other party with her. I'm talking about Julius. Amelia glanced at Kaius Subaru angrily and said indignantly, Dustless is bare-handed, but he is using the sword that he is best at. Even if he wins, it is an unfair victory. So you are fighting for Dustless. Kaius Subaru was very depressed, as if he had eaten a fly. His expression was very interesting. He had thought that he would be able to have a good time criticizing Dustless with Amelia, but who would have thought that she would be complaining about Julius? Cough, cough, cough. Amelia, there's something you might not know. It was Dustless who requested to fight Julius with his bare hands. It has nothing to do with Julius. Kaius Subaru explained and added, Dustless is too arrogant. If he loses, Amelia, you will lose all your face. You've misunderstood. Glancing coldly at Katsuki Subaru, Amelia said in a serious tone, I'm actually not that interested in the throne, especially in the previous selection. I can already see that everyone is rejecting me, even disgusted. I'm afraid that even if I take the throne, those people will only pretend to obey me but secretly oppose me. Soon after, Amelia gave a self-mocking smile that was filled with endless bitterness and bleakness. After which, she seemed to have thought of something and said with happiness, "But Dustless didn't hate me because of this, he even stood up for me. Of course I don't want him to get hurt." It would have been better if she didn't say anything. The moment she finished speaking, Keiichi Subaru's face suddenly looked constipated. She muttered in her heart, "I also support you, but why don't I see you care about me? Are you saying that Dustless is too handsome and has the aura to attract the female lead?" Keiichi Subaru was speechless. She kept cursing Dustless in her heart to vent her displeasure. When she saw Amelia's happy smile, she finally realized that her role as the main character had been snatched away. Bring it on. Don't waste my time. On the other side, Dustless's fingers were twitching, and he looked impatient. I hope you can still be so calm later. Julius squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. He stared at Dustless fiercely, holding his sword with one hand. Even though his body didn't move, an invincible aura had faintly rushed into the sky. This kid is finished. Yes, who does he think Julius is? How dare he humiliate him like this? He is destined to pay the price. Let's see this kid get split into several halves. His opponent is Julius, and he still dares to fight with his bare hands. Who does he think he is? Even the sword saint of the Astrea family is not as arrogant as him. Does he think he is made of iron and can withstand the attack of Julius? Some knights who were very optimistic about Julius were full of ridicule. They looked at Dustless with disdain, full of ridicule and contempt. In their opinion, Dustless was doomed, and there was no way to save the situation. However, only one person remained cautious. He always felt that Julius wouldn't win so easily. This person was Reinhardt. He had almost had a conflict with Dustless before, so he knew him quite well. In his impression, Dustless was not the kind of person who liked to shoot without thinking. His calmness obviously didn't seem to be an act. Swish! 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 At the same time, Julius made his move. His body turned into a gust of wind and pounced on Dustless as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he crossed layers of space and arrived in front of Dustless. Pfft! And the blade that radiated a cold light pierced Dustless's abdomen. He was killed in seconds. He's so weak. This guy is indeed a vase. Such a useless piece of trash dares to humiliate us. Are you kidding me? I really don't understand how such a weak person dares to stand up for others. Where did he get the courage? Seeing how Dustless couldn't withstand a single blow, the spectating knights couldn't help but sneer. This touch doesn't feel right. Why does it feel like he has slashed the air? I don't feel anything at all. On the other hand, Julius, who was close to Dustless, looked puzzled. The moment he lifted his head, Dustless came into view and suddenly laughed. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-26. A shameless person is invincible in the world, but a shameless tree will definitely die. In the past, Fianna didn't understand the meaning of this sentence. Now, she finally understood its true meaning. She suddenly realized that this sentence was a perfect match for Dustless. After living for more than 10 years, Fianna had seen all kinds of weirdos, but it was her first time encountering an invincible existence like Dustless. You think I'm shameless? That's right, I'm shameless. Dustless chuckled and said bluntly, I don't know if you've heard of the saying, good people don't live long, bad people live for 1,000 years. I just want to live forever, so being a bad person suits me. Fianna was speechless. Dustless had already said so, what else did she have to refute? After all, he admitted that he was shameless and didn't care about integrity. Don't wear down my patience. I'll increase it in a bit. Dustless stared at Fianna's naked body without restraint. His gaze swept around with deep meaning. He rubbed his chin and muttered to himself, it's just a kiss on the cheek. Am I too kind? After thinking for a while, he said, seems like it's better to choose somewhere else, such as peck. At this moment, Dustless suddenly felt something peck on the right side of his face. He turned his head and saw Fianna with a face full of shame and indignation. This. You're fast enough. I didn't even have time to react. Dustless's face was full of depression. Soon after, he said with a very bitter tone, seems like you've been eyeing me covetously. Otherwise, why are you so familiar with it? When you dream. Do you often fantasize about me? Hearing this, Fianna almost fainted from anger. This stinking brat didn't play by the rules at all. In this world, if there was a shameless selection competition, Dustless could definitely take the top 3 spots. Sigh, looking at how hesitant you are, that's most likely the case. Actually, all you have to do is say something. After all, you're a princess, so it's not a bad idea for me to throw myself at you. Actually, living off a woman suits me quite well. Dustless stared at the furious Fianna and continued to tease her, anyway, I'll just suffer a little. You still feel wronged. Fianna's eyes widened. This bastard clearly profited from taking advantage of me, and now he's saying that I'm wronged. His skin must be thicker than the city walls. Calm down, I must be calm. I can't lose my composure and argue with a scumbag. Fianna bit her thin lips. The sharp pain cleared her mind. She took a few deep breaths and asked calmly, I've kissed you. Can we go now? Not yet. Dustless shook his head and said expressionlessly, I asked you to kiss my left cheek, but you sneakily attacked my right cheek. What you're doing is clearly against the rules. Although you can avoid the death penalty, you can't escape punishment. Now, your punishment is to massage my shoulders and legs. After it's done, you can have a French kiss with me, and then I'll let you go. Let's just die together. Fianna didn't say anything else. She directly picked up the fruit knife on the table and pounced. I really hate that brat, God Fengzhou. Dustless's words were filled with endless magic. The pouncing Fianna's body suddenly stiffened. What do you mean? Fianna frowned and looked coldly at Dustless. She asked suspiciously, why do I feel like there's more to your words? If you have something to say, just say it. Don't hide it. Perhaps she was numb from Dustless's attacks, but Fianna didn't have the demeanor of a princess anymore. If you want me to let you go, it's actually very simple. Dustless lay on the sofa and said lazily, as long as you promise me that you'll break off your relationship with God Fengzhou and never come into contact with him again, I'll let you go. I don't need you to massage my shoulders and legs, and you don't need to kiss me. How about that? Hearing this, Fianna felt frustrated. She asked angrily, could it be that you tease me like that just to take revenge on God Fengzhou? Of course. Don't tell me you think you're so beautiful that I can't extricate myself from it. Dustless turned his head and glanced at Fianna with disdain. He said uninterestedly, don't get too carried away. Although you're pretty good looking, I'm already immune to beautiful women. After living for a few hundred years, Dustless had seen all kinds of beautiful women. Although Fianna was pretty good, it wasn't enough to make Dustless unable to walk. Teasing her like that before was just to disgust God Fengzhou. Dustless couldn't help but daydream. When God Fengzhou found out that his close friend was teased by Dustless, and their relationship was like that of lovers, would he fly into a rage? How about it? What's your choice? Princess Fianna. Dustless locked onto Fianna, who was in a dilemma, and gently persuaded, people always change. That god Feng Zhao has already been tricked into a lunatic by me. So for your future happiness, I advise you to break off your relationship with him. Break off my relationship with him, and then be entangled with you. Dream on. Fianna sneered disdainfully. Really, you think too highly of yourself. Dustless sighed. He really just wanted to tease Fianna. He didn't have any other intentions. He just wanted her to give up on God Feng Zhao. He didn't expect her to be so tactless. So you're saying that you want to take advantage of me? Dustless had a strange look on his face. He teased again, come on, I'll treat it as if you took advantage of me for a night. Anyway, I won't lose anything. F***CKU. Fianna was furious. She almost couldn't hold back her vulgarities. I refuse your conditions. You want me to break off my relationship with God Feng Zhao? Dream on. As soon as she finished speaking, Fianna threw caution to the wind and suddenly pounced over. Under Dustless's shocked gaze, this princess really turned into a female pervert and covered his mouth. Moreover, that little fragrant tongue also unscrupulously probed into Dustless's mouth. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-27. It was not difficult to see that this powerful attack was also covered with a powerful magic attack. Once Dustless was hit, it might cause secondary damage. If he was not careful, he would be burned alive. After all, Julius was known as the most excellent knight. This resounding nickname was not given casually. Whether it was magic or swordsmanship, it was not something that ordinary people could estimate. In terms of swordsmanship, only Reinhardt could match him. TSK, this kid is really finished. He doesn't know how to spell the word death. Looking at the whole kingdom, besides Reinhardt, who else can compete with Julius head-on? Sigh. If this guy Dustless could work hard and not be so arrogant, maybe he could surpass Reinhardt and Julius in the future. Unfortunately, he is going to die now. Some knights sighed and cherished the talent. After all, in their opinion, Dustless's talent was unparalleled, and he seemed to have amazing attainments in healing magic. Such a person would definitely be able to make a name for himself in the future. Unfortunately, he had provoked someone he would never dare to provoke in his life. So what? There are many geniuses, but how many can stand at the top? This kid is arrogant and insulted our spirit of chivalry. He deserves to be killed. There were also knights who expressed disdain for Dustless. In their opinion, a rampant person like Dustless deserved to die. There was no mercy at all. Some people even looked at Dustless as if they were looking at a corpse. Ha 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 ha, well done. Seeing this scene, Kai Yuezue laughed heartily for the first time. However, Amelia was beside him, so he was too embarrassed to laugh out loud. He could only hold it in. His expression was extremely strange, and he looked like he was enduring a lot of pain. Dustless, Kuan, Amelia clenched her fists. Julius's sword was too terrifying. Even from dozens of meters away, she could feel the mana in the atmosphere being sucked out and all of it rushing toward Julius. It was enough to see how heaven-defying the power of his sword was. Go to hell. Boom. 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 A terrifying halo erupted from the blade, and boundless flames surged out. Even the battlefield of the final battle was scorched black, and a strange smell filled the air. So strong. Dustless is definitely done for. Perceiving the horror of Julius's sword, everyone was horrified. Even a layman like Keiichi Subaru was stunned by this horrifying sword. Ha, he's definitely going to die, he's definitely going to die. Kaioru was overjoyed. If it weren't for the fact that Amelia was right beside her, she would have cheered. Being able to see Dustless being beaten was the best gift for Kaiosubaru. Being able to see Dustless die with his own eyes, even if he had to give up 10 years of his life. In his opinion, this was a good deal. Swish. Swish. Finally, under everyone's gaze, this terrifying sword pierced towards Dustless's head. Boom. 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 The moment the blade touched Dustless's head, it suddenly burst open, and an endless sea of fire erupted. The long sword in Julius's hand seemed to have sealed a large sea of fire. At this moment, all of it was released by him, and the endless fire was released. The space within a radius of dozens of meters was burned, and all living things were forbidden. Under this blazing flame, any living thing would die without a doubt. Damn it! Seeing that the sea of fire couldn't be contained and was still spreading, and even coming towards him, Julius's face changed greatly, and he quickly retreated. Boom! 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 Even so, the raging sea of fire still swallowed him up. Julius was still in a very sorry state. His whole body was black, and even the smell of charcoal filled the air. When Julius appeared in front of everyone again, he had been burned beyond recognition. His whole body was black, and his hair. No, at this moment, he had become bald. Damn it, did I use too much strength? Julius cursed angrily. Looking at the monstrous sea of fire, he took a deep breath and said, "This is one of my strongest moves. To be able to die under this move, you should be able to close your eyes in the netherworld. Dustless, right? I will remember you forever." In the endless sea of fire, there were only surging flames. Not to mention people, even the air was burned to nothing. The sky was baked by the blazing flames, and the white-hot steam was clearly visible. Dustless. Amelia smiled sadly, and 2 lines of clear tears slowly fell from her pair of watery eyes. In this world, there were only 2 people who didn't look at her differently. One was Parker, and the other was Dustless. As for Kaiosubaru, Amelia had automatically ignored her. Ha ha ha, dead, dead, finally dead. This bastard is finally dead. God still cares for me. Kaiosubaru was overjoyed. Dustless died so miserably that there wasn't even a corpse. It could be seen that he was burned to ashes while he was still alive. Idiot, this is trampling on the dignity of knights. Seeing that Dustless was dead, the group of knights laughed out loud, mocking Dustless for overestimating himself. Perhaps he had a chance to fight with Julius if he drew his sword, but he was so arrogant that he insisted on giving Julius 3 moves. In the end, he died without a complete corpse. Humph. I swear. At this moment, a cold and delicate voice resounded throughout the whole place. Everyone couldn't help but shiver. This voice was like the speech of the Grim Reaper, and it was an oath to the giant dragon. In this country, the giant dragon represented a special meaning, and so did the oath. If Dustless is dead, I won't let you have an easy time, even if it means risking my life. The person who spoke was Amelia, who looked angry. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-28. Work hard and continue to work hard. I have high hopes for you. Grievous patted Alice's shoulder and gave her a rare look of encouragement. She continued to comfort her, not everyone is as crazy as Dustless. Just do your best. Madam Dean, I have something. I have been wanting to ask you. As though she recalled something, Alice gathered her courage and looked at Grievous. Speak your mind. Grievous wasn't pretentious and was very straightforward. Can we surpass Dustless? Alice looked at Grievous expectantly. Her heart was filled with hope. She was a very strong person and it was obviously impossible for her to look up to Dustless. Grievous knitted her brows. Was there a need to ask this question? Some people couldn't surpass others in their entire lives and Dustless happened to be such a person. Alice, although that guy is powerful, he isn't limitless. As time passes, you will surpass Dustless sooner or later, Grievous said softly. She had high hopes for Alice, but in her heart, she said sadly, I'm sorry, Alice. That guy might be your destiny and you are destined to look up to him. She knew that Alice was a very hard-working girl, but she didn't want to crush her confidence at this moment. Besides, it wasn't a bad thing to set an example for Alice. At least she could work harder in the future and look up to Dustless. Dustless. Is that the guy? Zhu was hiding in a dark corner. He was wearing an army green robe that covered his entire body. Only a pair of bright eyes could be seen. That's right. It's him. The black-robed person beside Zhu nodded slightly and spoke in a gentle tone. However, when she mentioned Dustless, her tone was obviously cold and hostile. Lysia. Are you lying to me? Is that guy also an elf envoy? Zhu looked at her suspiciously. He always thought that the only successor of the Demon King was God Fengzhou. Now that there was another Dustless, how could he not be confused? As you can see, do you see the white-haired little girl beside her? Restia asked. Hearing this, Geo followed Lysia's line of sight. His silver hair hung down to his waist, and his expression was a little sluggish. He looked very innocent. That little girl is Dustless's contracted sprite. Dustless defeated celestial being Fengzhou. If you defeat celestial being Dustless, you should know what that means, right? Nonsense, of course I understand. Do you think I'm an idiot? Casting a cold glance at Restia, Geo said with glowing eyes, then I am the true successor of the Demon King. Not bad. Celestia nodded with a smile. A glint flashed across her eyes. In fact, this was her plan to kill two birds with one stone. All this while, Geo had regarded celestial being Fengzhou as his greatest enemy. With celestial being Fengzhou's current strength, it was meaningless for him to fight Geo. I'll let the two of you fight it out and die together in the end. Celestia's thin lips curled up slightly. Suddenly, a pair of black wings extended from her back. With a light flap, she disappeared without a trace. This pretty boy is clearly a freeloader. He's trash like celestial being Fengzhou. The Demon King is a job that requires strength. Only I am suitable to be the Demon King. Geo whispered softly. Seeing Dustless and Estelle taking a stroll together, and noticing that there were no suspicious figures around, he decisively followed them without hesitation. Don't tell me you were a starving ghost in your previous life. This is already the fifth one, Estelle. Dustless rubbed the girl's silver hair and stared at Estelle who was holding an ice cream in her hand. This girl was a real glutton. In less than 15 minutes, she had finished 5 ice creams. This speed was enough to shock everyone. It was rare to see a sprite with such a big appetite. I just like it. Estelle licked another mouthful of ice cream with a face full of happiness. Up to you. I don't know if sprites will get a stomachache from eating this. Dustless was too lazy to poke his nose into other people's business. He sat on a bench by the side of the path and closed his eyes in satisfaction. It was as if he was talking to himself, but at the same time, he wanted to say something to others. There are so many little rats these days. Celestial being Fengzhou left, but an even more arrogant rat came in. However, no one paid any attention to Dustless's words. It was quiet, as if there was no one around. Still not going to come out, Geo Inzart. His closed eyes suddenly opened. Looking at the blurry reflection behind the tree trunk to his left, he sneered and said, "This hiding technique is really childish. You dare to ask me to come out? Are you impatient with fire?" Being discovered by Dustless, Joe's face froze for a moment. Then, he was furious. Dustless actually asked him to come out. How dare he? Hee, you really are a wretch. Being stared at by Geo's fiery eyes, Dustless sneered and said, "I told you nicely before, but you pretended not to hear it. Later, I asked you to get out, and you really did. Are you a wretch? You. Looks like you really don't want to live anymore." Geo was furious. He had a bad temper to begin with. Now that he was being mocked by Dustless, how could he endure it? "You will die a horrible death." A pair of scarlet eyes circled around Dustless. Geo smiled cruelly. From his throat, a strange and eerie laughter could be heard. It seemed like he was choosing the right place to attack. The way his face was distorted was even more chilling. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-29. Ah! You are indeed a crazy wild dog. His gaze gradually became cold and cheerless. Dustless carefully searched through his memories, and only then did he suddenly recall that this fellow was inextricably linked with Restia. "That woman instigated you to challenge me, didn't she?" Dustless had a hopeless expression as he mocked, "You don't have to say it, I know why you are here. You are here for the position of Demon King, right? Actually, I am not interested in it. Whoever likes it can take it. But... forgive me for being blunt, but an idiot like you who is easily used can't even become a demon hound, let alone a demon king." Demon hound. Hearing this, Geo first looked at Dustless in confusion and asked without hesitation, "What is that? Why have I never heard of it?" Demon hound. In other words, it is a wild dog that helps a tiger do evil, Dustless said casually. What? It would have been better if he had not said it. These words completely enraged Geo. His blood-red eyes immediately flashed with a soul-stirring and terrifying aura. Looking at Dustless's position, Geo roared ferociously, "Show yourself, thunder-breaking spirit." Boom boom boom. The silver lightning appeared without any warning signs and immediately engulfed Wu Chen's entire body. The sound of crackling reverberated incessantly. His entire body was filled with the smell of burning. "Humph, you are burnt. This is the result of going against me." Seeing Dustless's miserable state, Geo could not help but curl his lips in disdain. He muttered, "I thought this guy was very capable. I didn't expect him to be so weak. What a waste of your what?" An unfamiliar voice suddenly sounded. Geo's heart skipped a beat as he instinctively felt a sense of danger. Just as he was about to retreat, a large hand pressed down on his shoulder. "Damn it, let me go." Geo struggled with all his might and used all his strength, but he could not escape from this thin and weak arm. He could only turn his head and roar, "If you have the guts, fight me for 300 rounds. Ha 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 ha. 300 rounds. You didn't even last one round before you were subdued by me. You want to fight me for 300 rounds. Was it a dream? Idiot." Dustless did not hide his ridicule. Ju paled. He looked at the burnt Dustless. It was unknown when it had turned into a piece of wood with black smoke rising from it. "Do you want me to admit defeat just like that?" Geo gritted his teeth and shook his head decisively. He said angrily, "You trash, in the end, paw." With a crisp sound, Geo was sent flying by Dustless's slap. There was a palm print on his face that looked like it had been burned by iron, and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. "It hurts." Joe grimaced in pain. To his dismay, he found that a few of his teeth had been broken by dustless. Roar! Joe, who had never suffered such a huge loss, turned into a ferocious wolf at this moment. He howled madly at dustless. It was not hard to see that he was truly enraged this time. You still dare to shout at me. This time, you broke a few teeth. Next time, you might lose your life. Dustless looked deeply at Joe and said unhurriedly. Hearing those words, Joe instantly fell silent. His face turned ferocious when he came back to his senses. He was actually frightened by a single sentence. This was simply a great humiliation. When he opened his mouth and was about to retaliate, Joe felt as if his throat was stuffed with a piece of bone. His voice was blocked and he couldn't speak at all. Did Restia trick you into challenging me? Seeing that this kid had quieted down, Dustless said slowly, do you understand that this is her scheme? Scheme? Joe frowned slightly and asked unkindly, what do you mean? No wonder you were used. Your brain is as stupid as a rock. Dustless explained softly, no matter which one of us dies, it will be beneficial to Restia. Do you understand? Why? Joe was even more puzzled. Because both of us are enemies of God Fengzhou. Do you understand? As long as one of us dies, Restia will have one less obstacle. It would be best if you can kill me. If you can't, the one who will be killed will be you. It won't be bad for Restia either. Restia has no reason to frame me. Joe's tone was cold. He thought that Dustless was trying to drive a wedge between them. Idiot, don't you understand? You want to become the Demon King, which is a threat to Restia. The Demon King in her eyes is God Fengzhou. Do you understand? Therefore, you are destined to be Restia's enemy. She only has God Fengzhou in her heart. There is no place for a spare tire like you. Dustless scolded. This guy was really stupid. Seems like you are right. Joe lowered his head and pondered. Although he was relatively slow, this did not mean that he was stupid. He could not even distinguish the most basic use. You can leave. I have no interest in the Demon King's position. Dustless waved his hand and said expressionlessly. Soon after, he turned around and left under Joe's stunned gaze. Just you wait. Joe glared fiercely at Dustless's back before finally disappearing. Dustless, Kuan, is it appropriate to let the tiger return to the mountain like this? That man will definitely return in the future. Esther looked at Dustless. He did not understand Dustless's actions. I know. He will definitely continue to cause trouble for me. He will not be satisfied if he doesn't kill me. Dustless explained as he walked. Soon after, he smiled sinisterly and said, however, this is not important for the time being. Now, Joe will definitely want to cut Restia and God Fengzhou into pieces. I see. Esther was enlightened. Esther came to a realization. If he was not wrong, Joe would be looking for trouble with God Fengzhou now. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2230. For Roswald, the meaning of life is to resurrect his master. For this reason, he has lived for more than 400 years, all for his master. Now that the plan is about to be realized, but Amelia dropped the ball at the critical moment, who can tolerate it? Therefore, he will only change Amelia's mind at all costs. Ha 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 ha. I have a good idea. His eyes suddenly lit up, and Roswald smiled maliciously. The thick makeup on her cheeks made her look like a frozen corpse, which made people shudder. Time flies by, the night is quiet, the moonlight is like a plate, and countless crows in the king's city are cawing in unison. Only the moonlight hanging high in the sky is aloof from worldly affairs, so cold and aloof. Let's rest for the night, let's go back tomorrow. Before returning to the room, Amelia greeted Dustless in her pajamas. Her snow-white legs were half exposed, and her skin was flawless, as smooth as silk. Her silver-white hair was like a ribbon, casually hanging down to her waist. Because she planned to give up the qualification of the king's choice, Amelia had a relieved smile on her face, and her whole person was like a happy little elf. It has to be said that Amelia's figure is quite good, especially at the moment when she is wearing pajamas. Her cleavage protruded from half of the pajamas, exposed to the outside. Under the illumination of the light, the stalwart meatball seemed to be glowing, making people a little dazzled. "Little girl, you are really a beauty." Dustless bowed his head and smiled, and couldn't help but look at Amelia a few more times. His eyes were as calm as still water, only pure calmness and appreciation. Hearing this, for some reason, Amelia suddenly became nervous. Her heartbeat also suddenly sped up, and her eyes were dotted with a dense light of hope. She somewhat stuttered as she asked, "What you said, is it true?" The moment he finished speaking, Amelia's beautiful face flushed red. She lowered her head, not daring to look at Dustless. She had always felt inferior because of this body. It was because Amelia's appearance was close to that of the Witch of Jealousy. She had been criticized, but Dustless was the first person to praise her beauty. "Of course it's true. You are indeed very beautiful. I really don't know why those rotten nobles would compare you to a witch. Is it a sin to be beautiful? Or is it because you look exactly like the Witch of Jealousy?" How comical. Dustless was deeply puzzled. Could this be the so-called femme fatale? In the end, it was the pure fear and hatred that humans had for the Witch of Jealousy. A few hundred years ago, the Witch of Jealousy almost destroyed the world. She did all sorts of evil and was even more evil than a demon. She left people with unforgettable memories. Perhaps that's why people are afraid of me. Amelia smiled bitterly, her tone filled with endless bleakness. What a joke, judging a book by its cover. Sure enough, it's extremely pedantic. Dustless snorted disdainfully. Compared to what he had done in the past, what was a mere Witch of Jealousy? It must be known that he had slaughtered more than 1 or 2 worlds. Using infinite tsukimi to control all humans and extract their vitality, this was what Dustless had done in the past. What was the Witch of Jealousy compared to Dustless? A drop in the ocean. Even though he was criticized and reprimanded by countless people, Dustless still lived a carefree life, detached from the world, while the majority of those people who criticized him turned into bones. This is interesting. Gently opening his mouth, Dustless was about to persuade Amelia when he suddenly frowned. His observation hockey immediately spread out, covering the entire courtyard, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "What's wrong? You look so scary." Amelia was also shocked when she saw the cold light in Dustless's eyes. She subconsciously stepped back, feeling that she was about to be swallowed up. "It's okay, it's just a reckless mouse suddenly came in." Dustless showed a smile, like the warm winter sun, driving away the uneasiness in Amelia's heart, and softly comforted her, the smelly mouse that sneaked and didn't understand how bad it is to disturb people's sleep late at night. Could it be an assassin sent by the other king's heir? Amelia clenched her fists. Although she was relatively simple, it didn't mean that she didn't understand everything. Who knows, it went to Rom's room, this mouse is very smart. Dustless's eyes were shining, and he was keenly aware that something was wrong. Among their group, the weakest was Rom. This guy specifically picked on the soft persimmon. Did he know in advance that Rom's strength was insufficient? It seems that it's an acquaintance, this is interesting. Dustless smiled faintly, and immediately walked over slowly. His body was as light and agile as a ghost, without making a sound. Should we wake up Rem and Roswald? With the two of them together, our safety is guaranteed. Amelia whispered behind Dustless. It was the first time she encountered such a situation, so she couldn't help but feel a little nervous. There's no need for that, maybe, we don't need to wake them up, the two of them already know. They're just watching silently. Roswald is very powerful, I can discover that someone has sneaked into the house, so I guess he's no exception. Now that he's turning a deaf ear to it, it can only mean one thing. Dustless's eyes flashed with a cold light, and the corner of his mouth revealed a hint of coldness. The person who sneaked in is very familiar with us and knows that Rom's strength is the weakest. What does this mean? Do you think it's a coincidence? Dustless looked at Amelia meaningfully. If it's not a coincidence, could it be one of us? Amelia said to herself in horror, feeling a wave of fear from the bottom of her heart. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:31. Celestia was furious. She had trained Ju to deal with Dustless, but now this brat had betrayed her and wanted to backstab Fengzhou deity. How could she tolerate this? This B***TCH really used me as a tool. In the end, Fengzhou deity took advantage of it. Ju lowered his head and pondered, but in fact, he had been secretly observing Celestia's movements from the corner of his eyes. When he saw the anger deep in her eyes, he knew that this B***TCH had used him before. Damn it! Thinking about how everything he had done was ultimately used by someone else, Ju flew into a rage. A sky-burning fury was brewing in his heart. After working so hard to get to where he was today, anyone would be angry if they had to take advantage of someone else in the end. Cutting that brat into 8 pieces is too easy for him. The anger in Ju's heart was ignited. Like a wild beast, his whole body was emitting a tidal wave of killing intent. What do you want to do? Celestia asked coldly. I'll have to study it carefully. Ju smiled cruelly like a merciless executioner. For example, let him suffer a fate worse than death. Let Fengzhou deity live in this world. How to torture him is a delicate task. I'll have to think about it slowly. Alicia Elf Academy. Dustless, are you really going to pull that Fianna into our team? That woman doesn't look like a good person. I advise you to think about it carefully. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. In Dustless's room, Linslet was seriously advising him. Linslet, I appreciate your surprise. I also know that Fianna wants to trick me, but since the enemy has made a move, I can't just run away, especially when the enemy is a woman. So, I can't back down, or else I'll look down on myself. Dustless was lying on the sofa in boredom. He fiddled with his fingers in an extremely idle manner, wasting time. Moreover, these days have been too boring. If someone jumped out to help me pass the time, it might not be a bad thing. To be honest, I really regret kicking Fengzhou deity out. Sigh. Some things can only be cherished after losing them. Now that I've lost my toy, the Fengzhou celestial being, I yearn for him to appear before my eyes even more. As soon as he said that, Wu Chen's face was full of regret, as if he had done the biggest mistake in his life. If deity Fengzhou hears your words, he will definitely tremble in fear. Linslet rolled her eyes and helplessly said, but since you've decided, I won't stop you. Just don't regret it. Dong dong dong. At this moment, there was the sound of someone knocking on the door. Wu Chen glanced at Estelle and the silly little girl went to open the door. You treat your contracted sprite as a nanny. On the other side, Claire was quite dissatisfied. She had spent a lot of effort in the past, but still couldn't tame Estelle. But now Dustless was using Esther as a servant, and Esther was so obedient, which really made Claire envious. What nanny? This can only mean that we have a deep relationship. Don't speak carelessly, little girl. Dustless glanced at Claire and smiled. When you mention Estelle, I can always smell a special smell. What smell? Claire sniffed her body and asked without feeling strange. You don't even know. Dustless laughed and teased. Of course it's the sour smell of a jar of vinegar. Go to hell. Claire's face turned red when she heard this. She picked up a pillow and threw it at him without holding back. Bang! Dustless naturally dodged at the first moment, but the others were the ones in trouble. Alice, who was walking over elegantly, was hit by the pillow. Are you provoking me? Claire Lucio. Alice glared, throwing aside the pillow that had hit her cheek. So what if I am? Facing the strong Alice, Claire naturally wouldn't lower her head and admit defeat. Besides, their tempers didn't get along, so it was even more impossible for her to lower her head. You, Alice's mouth twitched when she heard this. She cursed her bad luck. Who did I provoke? She attacked me as soon as she came in. Alice. You're here for something, right? Don't fuss over such small matters. Just say what you want to say. Dustless came out to mediate when he saw that the two girls were about to fight. Headmistress Gruis is looking for you. Alice nodded slightly. She couldn't be bothered to argue with Claire. Besides, she knew that she didn't have any ill intentions. That witch is looking for me. That's interesting. Doesn't she think of me as a jinx? Dustless touched his chin and couldn't help but be interested. He smiled and said, let's go take a look. In Gruis's office. An adorable young lady stood in front of Grievous's desk. The anger on her pretty face was clearly visible, and her delicate fists were clenched. Perhaps it wasn't because of Grievous's identity and strength, she would have already jumped over and violently beaten her up. Headmistress Gruis, are you joking? The girl asked angrily. She opened her mouth slightly. You want me to team up with that guy to carry out a mission? It's better to just kill me. But you've already agreed. Didn't you announce that you're joining Dustless's team? Gruis took a sip of coffee and asked, are you regretting it? Princess Fianna. But I said it out of anger. I did it on purpose for him to see. Fianna complained. Her pretty face was full of disdain. Dustless, that stinking brat, is extremely detestable. I can't wait to skin him alive even in my dreams. How can I join his team? Hey, you can even meet me in your dreams. You're really using me for your fantasies. At this moment, Dustless's lazy and teasing tone suddenly came. Fianna's head was suddenly filled with a bunch of crows. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2232. Damn Ross, if I knew my opponent was this pervert, I wouldn't have accepted this mission even if I was beaten to death. I was tricked by him. Alyssa looked nervously at Dustless who was approaching her and felt a headache coming on. Although she was relatively conceited about her own strength, she also understood that the person in front of her was unfathomable. She had lost miserably the last time they fought. Wait, let's talk. Alyssa looked at Dustless with a smile on her face. Even though she was very cowardly, she could only bow her head. When she fought with Dustless, she was crushed. You have something to say? Are you an idiot? You're going to assassinate my friend now, and you still want me to talk to you? Dustless sneered again and again. I let you go the first time, I hope you can be more sensible, but you still came to die without hesitation. In that case, whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the dead silent space, a few inexplicably cold gusts of wind blew, and Alyssa suddenly shivered, cold sweat quickly sliding down like raindrops. Of course, then, Dustless turned the thread of discussion and his eyes jumped with a strange light. He said slowly, if you are willing to tell me who is behind the scenes, I don't mind letting you go. Gulp. Roswald, who was hiding in the dark, heard Wu Chen's words and his heart suddenly tensed up. He broke out in a cold sweat. What should I do if they sell me out? All of my plans will be destroyed in an instant. So. She must not say it. Ross's murderous intent was awe-inspiring and his eyes were locked on Alyssa coldly. As long as he found that she was suspected of speaking, he would kill her. This won't do. Alyssa shook her head and said indifferently, assassins have their own rules. If I confess to my employer, then I won't be able to survive on this road. Then. Dustless's eyes were cold, you go, whoosh whoosh whoosh. However, before Dustless's voice had finished speaking, Alyssa suddenly disappeared. In the night, the cold light danced and rushed straight to another black shadow. Get over here. Taking advantage of Lom's carelessness, Alyssa suddenly flashed behind her and skillfully grabbed her with her scimitar at Lom's neck. It's actually this, all of this had happened in the blink of an eye. It was clear that Eliza had been prepared in advance. She had purposely acted as if she was about to start a fight with Dustless and then decisively launched a sneak attack on Lom. You're so young, but you've got a lot of tricks up your sleeve. Dustless gave him a thumbs up, his tone full of praise. Oh. I don't think I have the strength to fight with a terrifying person like you. Therefore, I can only use some small tricks. With the hostage in her hands, she was a little calm. Get out of the way if you don't want this little girl to die. Looking at Dustless with hostility, Alyssa threatened coldly. Dustless, Amelia was also extremely nervous. It was the first time she had encountered such a situation. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel a little hesitant and didn't know what to do. How childish. Do you think you can leave here alive after capturing Lom? Dustless sneered. In addition to the murderous intent in his cold tone, there was also a trace of contempt. Do you want to watch this girl die? Alyssa's expression changed and she scolded, or do you think I won't kill her? Don't underestimate my courage. If I die, there's still someone to be buried with me. Then I won't lose anything. No, you misunderstood me. Dustless shook his head and explained calmly, I mean, before you kill her, she'll be dead. Dustless was expressionless. He just looked at Alyssa quietly, as if waiting for her to make a move. His eyes were calm and full of contempt. You forced me to do this. Hearing this, Alyssa was furious. The scimitar in her hand suddenly stabbed at Lom's throat. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Right at this moment, a flash of light suddenly appeared in the dark space. It whistled out and arrived beside Alyssa in a split second. Moreover, it grabbed Alyssa with lightning speed and subdued her. Bastard, let go of me. Alyssa was furious. This speed was too abnormal. In the blink of an eye, she was subdued. The scimitar was about to pierce Lom's neck. You're courting death. Seeing Alyssa being so insensible, Dustless kicked her. Bang! Alyssa was kicked hard in the abdomen and her whole body was suddenly kicked out. She fell and rolled more than 10 meters away. She looked at Dustless with a painful expression, her eyes full of hatred. Ah, you're about to die and you still dare to stare at me like this? Dustless shook his head. At the same time, he looked at Lom and asked softly, Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere? No, thank you. Lom looked at Dustless gratefully. Perhaps if it weren't for him, he would have been killed by Alyssa. Thump thump thump, at the same time, a burst of messy footsteps suddenly sounded. Such a huge movement alarmed everyone, including Kaituki Subaru, who rushed over. At the same time, the lights in the whole house were all lit up in an instant. Roswald and others rushed over and looked at Ilusa with a covetous look. Oh no, if this guy is captured alive, he might betray me. Roswald was burning with anxiety. He had met Ilusa before. What if he was captured alive by Dustless and betrayed him because of his weak will? Tell me, which king's heir sent you to assassinate Lady Amelia? Roswald glared at Ilusa, his body surging with a large amount of magic power, and he looked at Ilusa with an unkind face. Is this guy trying to silence me? Looking at Roswald with a smile, Dustless's ridicule flashed across his face. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2233. You're really disgusting. You're too hypocritical. At this moment, not only Dustless expressed disdain, but Ilusa was also the same. Her small mouth opened gently and she looked at Roswald dumbfoundedly. She didn't expect this guy to look very funny on the surface, but his shrewdness and tricks were so deep. His kung fu was absolutely perfect when it came to scheming. Looking up, Roswald in front of her was glaring at her, and his eyes contained endless hostility, as if Ilusa was his enemy who killed his father. However, if it was known that Ilusa was hired by Roswald, most people would drop their eyes and give him the middle finger decisively. With such a shocking acting talent, it would be a waste of resources to continue acting as a clown. Tell me, which king's candidate sent you to assassinate me? If you are willing to tell me the truth, I can be merciful and spare your life, otherwise. Having said that, Roswald glanced at the frightened Rom, and the veins on his forehead jumped violently, and he said angrily, if you don't tell me the truth, I will make you regret living in this world, and let you understand the consequences of hurting my servant. Clap asterisk clap asterisk clap. At this moment, Dustless suddenly clapped and gave Roswald a thumbs up. Movie King, Dustless's heart was filled with emotion. The person who sent Ilusa to sneak attack was obviously Roswald, this bastard, but now he can say such shameless words. He must be a natural performer. What do you mean by this? Roswald's face changed slightly, and his tone was a little gloomy. He felt that Dustless's words had a hidden meaning. I'm praising you. Dustless chuckled. Roswald's acting skills were really good. If I tell you the person behind me, will you let me go? After a while, Ilusa's tone became weak, as if she was really afraid. Say it, I can let you go once. Roswald said blankly, but he was laughing in his heart. All of this was exactly as he planned. It was Anastasia Heason who sent me. Ilusa's thin lips opened slightly and said slowly, before Amelia's night Dustless defeated Julius and made Anastasia lose face, so she hired me to find trouble with you. It's best to kill all of you. It's a good organization, it should have been discussed in advance. Dustless curled his lips and his face was full of disdain. Anastasia was also one of the king's candidates. Her knight was Julius, who was crushed by him. Now Anastasia sent an assassin to assassinate Wu Qin. Everything seemed reasonable and there was nothing suspicious on the surface, but in fact it was not. Wu Qin understood that the person behind the scenes was definitely Rosval, and it had nothing to do with the girl named Anastasia. Lady Amelia, Roswald suddenly turned to look at Amelia and said in a deep voice, although I'm very sorry to say this, it seems that you still have to continue the king's selection. Now that you haven't given up, Lady Anastasia is acting recklessly against you. If you give up the king's selection, she will definitely retaliate against you even more crazily. Amelia hesitated, her heart was tangled, looking at Rom full of self-blame. If it weren't for her, she might not have been kidnapped and assassinated. Insidious guy. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but sneer. Roswald sent Alyssa to assassinate Amelia, in fact, to force Amelia to continue to participate in the king's selection. Even if Rom really sacrificed himself, he didn't care. Although I didn't kill this little girl, my mission is also completed. Alyssa looked at Rom twice. According to the predetermined plan, she first killed Rom, then deliberately got captured, and confessed that the person behind the scenes was the other king's heir, and then Roswald would silently let her go. But now it seems that there is no need. Phew. Noticing that everyone seemed to be distracted, Alyssa quickly turned into a flash of light and left. Want to run? You're looking for death. At this moment, Roswald's magic power went berserk and he looked like a clown. At this moment, he turned into an incomparably cold killer and blocked Alyssa's path in an instant. What do you mean by this? Did you change your plan? Roswald. Alyssa was stunned when she saw Roswald appear in front of her with a bloodthirsty and gloomy smile. She was a little sluggish for a while. This is different from the plan. This guy. Alyssa looked straight at Roswald, her hands clenched the curved sword, not daring to have the slightest carelessness and relaxation. Roswald's eyes were filled with boiling killing intent and Alyssa felt that her body was about to melt. According to the original plan, she would leave quietly and there would be no drama of Roswald chasing after her. Idiot, you've been fooled. At this time, you still don't understand Roswald's ideas. Your brain is really slow. No wonder you were abandoned after being used. Dustless saw Alyssa's blank face and immediately understood that this guy was deceived. What an idiot. Why did Roswald suddenly turn against her? To put it bluntly, Alyssa has no value. If this kind of person continues to live, it will be too much of a threat to him. After all, once the conspiracy between the two is exposed, Roswald will be instantly ruined. Not to mention helping Amelia get the throne and slaying the dragon, it will be a big problem whether he can survive or not. And in this world, only the dead can't speak. What Roswald intends to do is self-evident. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2234. What do you want to do? I warn you, don't mess around, don't forget your identity. If I tell you, Roswald, you will lose your reputation in an instant and become an unsympathetic stray dog. The panic in her heart spread and Alyssa looked at Roswald's ferocious eyes and said softly. Only the two of them could hear the faint voice. Everyone else was confused and did not hear anything clearly. Really? You are suspicious, of course I won't kill you, after all, we are allies. The cold face suddenly filled with a gentle smile and Roswald explained, you said these words, do you know what it means? What does it mean? Alyssa's mood was inevitably relieved, thinking that Roswald had really let her go. It means that I want you to die. How dare you threaten me, go to hell, trash. At this moment Roswald changed his face again, his eyes shot out scarlet hostility, his right hand covered with a lot of magic fluctuations, and all of them blasted out. Boom! The huge shock wave penetrated Alyssa's body and easily sent her flying, blood spurting from the corners of her mouth, her body smashed the wall and fell on the road. What do you mean by this? Alyssa, who stood up from the ground, was stunned, not expecting Roswald to change his face so quickly. She immediately tried to fight back, but her whole body suddenly hurt like needles, and she had problems walking, let alone fighting back. A fox will always reveal its tail, no matter how clever the concealment is, there will be clues exposed, and this time, it's time for you to die. Who will win in the end, depends on who is more skilled. Dustless smiled slightly and continued to watch coldly, he also had his own plans. Go to hell. Roswald was indifferent and with a wave of his hand, a large sea of fire suddenly appeared in the void and smashed towards Alusha very ferociously. At this moment, Alusha was extremely embarrassed, her abdomen was pierced and she could see the other side of the world. If she continues to be burned by this sea of fire, the end result will be miserable. Even if she has 10 lives, she will still be burned alive. Although Alusha is a member of the Blood Clan and her body can break out of the cocoon and be reborn, but this is not immortality, she is not an existence like Dustless. Just you wait. Alusha's eyes were bloodshot as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. She then turned around and retreated without hesitation. How naive, in front of me, do you think you still have a chance to escape? Rollercoasters' face was filled with disdain as he raised his head and suddenly dropped his big hand. Boom boom boom. In the blink of an eye, the falling sea of flames seemed to have grown eyes as it changed the direction of its fall and smashed directly onto Alusha's body. Ah, it hurts, it's burning me to death. In the sea of fire, a figure covered in flames wailed, his voice filled with endless pain. This time, you didn't even leave a corpse behind. Let's see how you're going to make a comeback. Roswald laughed in his heart, and at the same time, he walked to Amelia's side with great respect. Lady Amelia, although I can understand your mentality, I still hope that you can continue to participate in the selection. After sorting out his thoughts, Rossival advised, you haven't quit yet and that group of people is so unscrupulous that they dare to hire assassins to murder you. If you withdraw from the king's choice later, the consequences will be unimaginable. But, Amelia's eyebrows turned gently as she voiced out her inner doubts, since they wanted to assassinate me, why did they choose Rom? Were there any other misunderstandings? What do you think, Dustless? Finally, Amelia looked at Dustless. Damn it, it's this guy again. Will he die if he doesn't show off? Caillou Yang complained about Dustless's dissatisfaction with Dustless in his heart. Every time it was a close call, this guy would always be able to stand out. This matter has been filled with countless puzzles from the beginning. Dustless also nodded and looked at Rosswer with a profound look, full of alternative meanings. What's with this guy's look? Rosswer's heart trembled as if his biggest secret was discovered by Dustless and he was extremely upset. What's wrong? Alusha admitted it herself that she was an assassin hired by another king's heir. The purpose was to kill Lady Amelia. In this way, there is one less candidate for the king's heir. There are a lot of things that are wrong. Dustless said faintly, and then contemptuously said, the mastermind behind the scenes must be an idiot with a negative IQ, and the show is full of flaws. You said the mastermind behind the scenes is an idiot? Rosswer forced a smile on the surface, but in his heart, he was scolding Dustless. Isn't the mastermind behind the scenes himself? First of all, the biggest problem is what Amelia said. Since it was to assassinate her, why did they find trouble with Rom? And, the most incredible thing is this all a coincidence? Rom is the weakest among us, and the lady named Alusha obviously knows this. Other than that. In short, there are too many suspicious places. It's really a clumsy script. Dustless pointed out a lot of loopholes, and Rosswer listened more and more. He never thought that Dustless actually had detective attributes. Rosswer, I promise you that I will continue to participate in the king's heir. Even if it's not for myself, I have to think about everyone's safety. Finally, Amelia mustered up her courage and her face was resolute. Her eyes were full of the light of no regrets. Dustless was still silent. No matter what the result was, it had no impact on him. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2235. Fianna's mind was in a mess. She looked at the approaching god Fingzhou, not knowing what to do. She had imagined the scene after the two met, but she didn't expect it to be such a cruel scene. Caw caw caw, Fianna's faith was slowly crumbling. The confidence she had built up was also completely destroyed. Right, there's no need to kill you so quickly. God Feng Zhao seemed to have thought of something and stopped. His gloomy and unkind expression disappeared in an instant, returning to his cold and indifferent expression. Did you remember me? Fianna stared blankly for a moment, then asked in ecstasy, we've met before. So what? Who would have thought that God Feng Zhao's words would make Fianna despair again? She said coldly, if you knew me and still dared to flirt with Wu Qin, then all the more reason I should kill you. Moreover, letting you die comfortably would be letting you off too easily. God Feng Zhao was like a demon at this moment. He sneered at Fianna. His words were full of ruthless mockery. But I really don't know Dushless. I even have a grudge against him, and the reason is because of you. Fianna felt very wronged, and her voice was somewhat choked. That's why I don't plan to kill you. God Feng Zhao said meaningfully. Really? Fianna's beautiful eyes once again revealed a trace of hope. She longed for God Feng Zhao to remember the past. I'll kill you in front of that stinking brat Dushless. God Feng Zhao said coldly, if that brat Dushless is heartbroken, even if I'm killed by him, I'll see him in pain and understand my pain. Even if I'm killed by that brat Dushless, I'll die without regrets. But what if Dushless really doesn't know me? Wouldn't I have died for nothing? Fianna frowned. At this moment, she really felt that God Feng Zhao was possessed. This is killing an innocent person. Fianna reminded. If you kill an innocent person, then so be it. You can only blame your bad luck. Of all people, you just had to be related to that bastard Dushless. God Feng Zhao was like a robot. When he spoke, there were no fluctuations. You really have changed. Hearing this, Fianna smiled bitterly and looked at God Feng Zhao in a daze. It seemed that Dushless was right. He had already turned God Feng Zhao into a mental patient. Do you hate him? Fianna did hate Dushless, but Dushless was right about some things. Feng Zhao knew that he was no match for Dushless, so he should have left or tucked his tail between his legs. However, this guy did not know when to back down. Until now, he was still thinking about how to take revenge on Dushless. Didn't he deserve to be beaten up? Let go, you can't possibly be Wu Chen's opponent. Fianna advised sincerely. She had seen how powerful Dushless was. On the other hand, God Feng Zhao seemed to have lost the feeling of the old Liena Subble. Challenging Dushless like this was tantamount to courting death. In any case, God Feng Zhao had done Fianna a favor. If it were not for God Feng Zhao, Fianna might have died a few years ago. Therefore, she did not want him to fall. However, it would have been better if she did not say these words. The moment she finished speaking, God Feng Zhao's face suddenly turned cold. Fianna even felt that it was difficult to breathe. Preposterous. Even a small character like you dares to look down on me. God Feng Zhao glared at Fianna. His teeth were about to shatter. Being looked down on by Dushless was one thing, but even this captive was looking down on him. How could God Feng Zhao's arrogant heart accept this? I don't mean to look down on you. This is the truth. Seeing that God Feng Zhao did not listen, Fianna's tone became more serious. If it weren't for the fact that you still have some use, would have let you die without a burial ground. God Feng Zhao sneered. No matter if Fianna was sincerely persuading him or if she was being hypocritical, he was extremely annoyed whenever Dustless was mentioned. The next morning, the morning wind was mighty and there were no clouds in the sky. A group of people gathered at the gate of Alicia Elven Academy. Claire, Linslet, and Alice were all here. Only Fianna was missing. Where did that big-breasted, brainless princess go? She couldn't have run away, right? Claire's gaze spread out, taking in all the figures in the surroundings. She did not find Fiona. Maybe she's still sleeping. Dustless replied uninterestedly. Soon after, he looked at the sun hanging high in the sky and said, "It's getting late. Let's go together. That princess doesn't like me anyways. It's better if we don't bring her along. It saves me trouble. Let's go." That's true. The three women nodded slightly. Fiona had only joined this group to trick Dustless. Along the way, the three figures gradually disappeared until they turned into black dots and completely disappeared. Other than Dustless, who was more casual, the three women were more reserved. After all, Dustless had offended too many people. God Feng Zhao, Geo, Celestia. It would be terrible if he was ambushed. No need to be so nervous. If they dare to appear, they won't be able to return. Dustless smiled, full of confidence. They were just a few clowns. There was no need to go through so much trouble. You make it sound so easy. Do you think everyone is as perverted as you? Claire rolled her eyes. After all, everyone only had one life. They couldn't be careless. Claire's words are reasonable. We should still be vigilant when it's time to be. Alice also agreed with Claire's point of view. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. It was also at this moment that a sharp explosion sounded. A cold light streaked across the sky and flashed before everyone's eyes, heading straight for Dustless. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2236. You think I am a demon. After all, I am indeed your demon, but there is no grievance in this world that cannot be resolved. As long as you want, I can actually incarnate into a saint. Dustless looked at the embarrassed Alusha and dragged his voice with a different meaning in his tone. Anyone could hear it. If he wanted to kill Alusha at this moment, it would be as simple as eating and drinking, but Dustless didn't do it. The meaning was self-evident. You mean, Alusha's mind flashed away. She could live until now and her IQ was naturally good. Are you willing to help me? No. Speaking of this, Alusha's cheeks dimmed. She didn't seem to have any value in making a deal with Dustless. This guy wouldn't help her for no reason. There would be no pie in the sky for no reason, and Alusha looked at the wound on her lower abdomen and said bitterly to herself, that guy Roswald is cruel and has seriously injured me. I'm still alive now. I'm just holding on, or I'm not willing to die. This is normal. Who would want to die if they can live? I have lived for hundreds of years and I still have some nostalgia for this colorful world. Dustless said, staring at Alusha's bad injury and said, that guy Roswald is ruthless. Your internal organs are all destroyed and you can still talk to me. This shows that your race is relatively good and your vitality is very strong. So what, I still can't escape death. Alusha gritted her teeth and said, it's a pity that I have done all the bad things and death is not enough. Anyway, I also thought of this day. The only thing that makes me surprised and angry is that I didn't expect to die so easily. That guy Roswald really deserves to die. He dared to betray me. He really deserves to die. He's very good at playing with people's hearts. Dustless nodded. Roswald was indeed a scheming bitch. His acting skills could be called the movie king. If it weren't for Dustless being a traveler, he might have been deceived by his gorgeous and real acting skills. I can let you continue to live, but how are you going to repay me? Dustless stared at Alusa for a while and said leisurely, your injury is impossible for others, but it's a piece of cake for me. What's your choice? Really? Alusa was stunned for a moment before she stood up. Her face was flushed and she was extremely excited. No wonder Dustless didn't kill her. It turned out that he still felt that she was useful. I can. Illusa's brain cells accelerated and she came up with her trump card in an instant. I can tell Master Dustless everything about Roswald. It had to be said that although Illusa's strength was average, her mind was quite sharp and she knew what Dustless wanted. That's good. You're very smart. I like tactful women. Dustless smiled and nodded. This was what he needed. When he brought Illusa to Roswald, he didn't know if he would jump up in fright. Then Dustless helped Illusa treat her wounds. This kind of serious injury would be fatal for others, but for Dustless, who has countless abilities, it's a piece of cake and it's not worth mentioning at all. Time flew by and half an hour passed quietly in a blink of an eye. Illusa also recovered and she looked at Dustless with respect and worship as if she was looking at a god. His strength is unparalleled and he has unfathomable abilities. It seems good to be loyal to such a master. Illusa muttered in her heart as she looked at Dustless. Especially since he and Dustless have the same enemy, Roswald. Master, there's something I don't understand. On the path in the wilderness, Dustless and Illusa walked side by side. Thinking of Dustless's strength, Illusa couldn't help but wonder. Speak. Dustless simply said one word. With your strength, it's only a small problem to defeat Roswald, but why did you let him live? Illusa was full of doubts as she had full confidence in Dustless's strength. It turned out to be this matter. Dustless was also dissatisfied with concealing and said slowly, Illusa, you have to remember that although violence can solve all problems, it is the most rude way. If I kill Roswald rashly, how do you think others will see me? Of course, I don't care about those outsiders, but I still have to understand the feelings of Amelia, Rom and Remington. Especially the maid sisters, they have a deep affection for Roswald. I don't have any evidence. If I kill him for no reason, they will definitely hate me for life. But that bastard Roswald sent me to attack Rom and let me kill her. The sisters were deceived. Illusa said unwillingly, that guy is really insidious. In order to achieve his goal, he actually let me attack the people he cares about the most. Yes, but that guy won't admit it. I can't do anything about it, so I have to collect evidence, expose that bastard, and then. Dustless's eyes were cold. Let him die in the most painful way. That's what I'm going to do. Since he's going to die anyway, it doesn't matter if he jumps around for 2 more days. Just like Saiwa Subaru, although the skill, Death Samsara, is very powerful, once Dustless determines that the world has no value, he will destroy him. Of course, it's not necessary to kill him. Sometimes killing a person will free the other party. For example, sealing Saiwa Subaru alone for thousands of years. There are too many ways to deal with him. Gulp, looking at the murderous Dustless, Illusa suddenly shuddered. She couldn't help but rejoice at her choice. Roswald is just playing a small conspiracy, but Dustless is a real power. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 evaluation votes plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2237. Ah, my hand. You actually cut off my hand. I'll definitely bury you bastard with me. Ouch, 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 it hurts. God Fengzhou screamed. Even though his right arm was crippled by Dustless, his hysterical screams were still filled with hatred for Dustless. Really, was this kid's head kicked by a donkey? Claire and the others frowned. At first, they couldn't bear it, but after hearing that not only did God Fengzhou not repent, he even cursed Dustless. Didn't he deserve to die? He clearly knew he wasn't the enemy's match, yet he still cursed him. Wasn't this courting death? For a moment, their sympathy for God Fengzhou quickly disappeared. The three girls silently looked at God Fengzhou, acting as if it had nothing to do with them. After all, it had nothing to do with them. God Lord. Seeing this, Fianna opened her mouth wide and hurriedly ran over. Get lost. God Fengzhou waved his arm and looked at Fianna unkindly. Everything is because of you, woman, Jinx. Hearing God Fengzhou say this, Fianna felt extremely wronged. She had always been on his side. What a pity. Dustless shook his head and glanced at Fianna with pity. He bluntly said, "Didn't I say it before? This God Fengzhou has already become mentally deranged by me and has become mentally ill. Why do you have to get involved? He's no longer the same person." It was undeniable that Dustless was the cause of God Fengzhou's current state. But so what? Wasn't the so-called protagonist meant to be bullied? If he wasn't pleasing to the eye, just beat him up. You just asked for someone else's last words. Now, I want to ask for yours. Dustless looked at God Fengzhou with a biting cold gaze. He then looked at Fianna and said coldly, "I'm about to kill this kid. If you want revenge, then bring it on." Perhaps because the blow was too severe, Fianna's entire body was like a statue. Last words. God Fengzhou's eyebrows twitched, his eyes were filled with a strong desire to live. Die just like that? Perhaps he could, but before that, there must be a prerequisite, and that was to drag Dustless down with him to the grave. However, now that his hand was crippled, it was obviously nonsense. Not to mention that he had lost his hand, even if his limbs were still intact, he would definitely not be Dustless's opponent. Then, I can only choose someone else. God Fengzhou's cold gaze flickered back and forth before finally landing on Claire and the others. Since it was impossible to kill Dustless, he could only choose the weaker ones. This way, God Fengzhou was confident he could take them down. Swish! Swish! Thinking of this, God Fengzhou's killing intent soared. His whole body turned into a black bolt of lightning. His large hand turned towards the completely unknown Claire. God Fengzhou understood that she had the best relationship with Dustless in this group because the two had known each other the longest. There was no doubt about their relationship, and with Claire's strength, she was easy to deal with. If she died, Dustless would definitely be sad. Despicable. Seeing this, even Fianna couldn't help but secretly curse. Was this still the God Fengzhou in her heart? He was simply a despicable and shameless villain. Humph. Dustless's gaze also became colder and colder. He clenched his fist and was about to attack when a curved flame suddenly whipped towards God Fengzhou. Paw! This whip could be said to be merciless. It even carried a flame attack, burning God Fengzhou's face. Ah, my face! God Fengzhou howled in pain after being hit again. On his handsome face, a scarlet burn marked the size of a thumb was incomparably hideous. Humph, you sinister guy, you think this young lady is easy to bully? Claire's beautiful eyes froze. She looked at God Fengzhou unkindly and said in annoyance, "A man like you is even more hateful than Dustless. No matter how bad he is, at least he won't kill a woman. Although Dustless does things despicably, he definitely won't shamelessly sneak attack others in a battle," Claire said in an incomparably serious tone. That resolute and decisive tone seemed to understand Dustless very well. That's right. Compared to Dustless, God Fengzhou is far inferior. The other girls also nodded. Whether it was Alice or Linslet, they all felt that Dustless was countless times stronger than God Fengzhou. There was no comparison at all. Damn, are you guys praising me, or did you guys discuss beforehand to slander me together? Dustless's face was full of black lines. He touched his nose and was extremely embarrassed. It sounded like Claire was praising him, but in fact, it was the same as pointing at Dustless's nose and scolding him. Forget it, I'm a great person who doesn't remember the wrongs of a petty person. Besides, this little girl didn't do it on purpose. In the end, Dustless chose to swallow this resentment. As a man, sometimes there was no need to be too calculative, especially when the other party was a woman. He shouldn't be calculative about small things. What do you think of this kid now? Dustless suddenly looked at Fianna. He saw her eyes full of disappointment, as if someone had taken away her soul. He said indifferently, "Do you hate me for turning him into this? What do you think?" Fianna only looked at Dustless coldly, but soon sighed faintly and explained, "But this isn't your fault. At most, God Feng Zhao's skills are inferior to others." Previously, Fianna had always called God Feng Zhao Lord, but now she directly called him by his name. It could be seen that the relationship between the two had become a lot more subtle in an instant. At least, it wasn't as harmonious as before. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2238. Hearing this, Dustless smiled and stopped paying attention to Fianna. It seemed that no matter how stubborn a person was, as long as they were hit too many times, their thinking would be overturned. "I used to like you a lot. Sometimes, I would even see you in my dreams. When I woke up, I would be in a daze, wondering where you were." Recalling the past, Fianna's pretty face revealed a happy smile. Although the time she met God Feng Zhao was very short, it was the happiest time of her life. However, everything that happened today shattered Fianna's dreams. As the saying went, as the environment changed, everyone would change. A little girl will always be a little girl. Just because someone saved your life, you fell in love with him. How childish. Dustless only curled his lips in disdain. He could only say that Fianna was too naive. After all, she was still a child at that time. Dustless had saved countless people, but he didn't see them dedicating themselves to him. However, now, then, Fianna's eyes suddenly turned cold. Fianna's beautiful eyes were emotionless. She said in a cold and hoarse voice, "You've completely chilled my heart. I can understand if it's just to take revenge on Wuchen, but you've already lost your mind. You don't care even if you use despicable means. This kind of person is really bad. You are no longer the Liena Subble I know. Really bad." These three simple words were Fianna's evaluation of God Feng Zhao. "Could it be that you are? Great, I remember who you are." God Feng Zhao looked at Fianna in a daze. He suddenly remembered something and slapped his forehead. "You are the little girl I saved back then." God Feng Zhao suddenly remembered. They had the same hair color and the same face. The only difference was that Fianna's pretty face was isolated from the world. She looked at God Feng Zhao with endless disgust. "You finally remembered me?" Fianna asked coldly. This is," recalling what he had done to Fianna, God Feng Zhao's face blushed. He looked at Fianna with great embarrassment and gritted his teeth. "Back then, I saved you once. Now, you can't just watch me die, right?" "Humph." Hearing this, Fianna only snorted coldly. She didn't say anything, but her gaze was even colder and her heart ached. The meaning behind God Feng Zhao's words was very simple. He wanted Fianna to stand on his side and help him avert danger. At the very least, he had to plead with Dustless. "You once saved me. I am very grateful, but..." Fianna's gaze fell on Dustless's head. She coldly asked, "If I tell you not to kill him, will you hold back?" "Oh, this?" Dustless rubbed his chin. Finally, he shook his head and said, "I showed my kindness once before. As long as this brat left my sight, I could let him go and let bygones be bygones. But, as you can see, he is seeking death again. Dustless looked down at God Fengzhou. There was only pure killing intent in his eyes. Now, he will die without a doubt. You heard that. Fianna slightly nodded. She gazed at God Fengzhou and said, I have already pleaded for you, but this brat doesn't appreciate it. So, you should change your conditions. You better understand your own identity. Without me, you little girl would be a corpse. There wouldn't even be anyone to collect your corpse. God Fengzhou was furious. He raised his voice and angrily rebuked, You trash, is this how you talk to your savior? Useless thing, you can't even solve such a small matter. If I knew you were so useless, I wouldn't have saved you. Trash like you should just die on your own. I don't want to waste my breath. Cheap mouth. Fianna strode over with her head held high. She stared at the face in front of her and slapped him twice. Paw. 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 God Fengzhou's old face suddenly had two glaring palm prints. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Even his mouth was crooked from the slaps. He couldn't even speak clearly. Idiot brat, you deserve it. You think that just because you saved someone else's life, Fianna is yours. This kind of stupid thinking makes me feel like you haven't grown up yet. You are still a 3-year-old child. Not only did Dustless look at all this with a sneer, but even Claire and the others looked at him coldly. Only when one lost something would one cherish it. Even if God Fengzhou wanted to redeem himself, it was already too late. He had already deeply hurt Fianna. But in Dustless's eyes, this was also a good thing. In any case, God Fengzhou had already become mentally ill. In the future, Fianna would also suffer with him. It was better to leave as soon as possible so that she wouldn't be poisoned too deeply. Brat, now is the time to say goodbye. Look at this azure sky for a while longer. Dustless slowly walked over. Light flickered in his hand as the heavenly sword condensed from the glint fruit appeared in his hand. He held it high above God Fengzhou's neck. No, I can't accept this, I can't die here. God Fengzhou completely exploded after hearing Dustless's words. He didn't even care about his life as he tried to grab at Dustless. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Seeing this, Dustless didn't hold back. He swept his sword and the sharp blade went straight for God Fengzhou's head. Poochie. God Fengzhou's head was chopped off and fell to the ground. His body also became a headless corpse. His neck was like a hot spring, spurting out bright red blood. Plop. God Fengzhou's head fell to the ground. Even at the moment of his death, his face was filled with unwillingness. His eyes were still blankly looking at the azure sky, full of reluctance and deep nostalgia. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2239. Miss Cursius, just say what you want to say. Don't stare at me like that. Wu-chan said slowly, if you want to marry Keiichi Subaru, that's the best. You can choose someone who is uglier than a pig. That guy has a special taste. He likes this type of girl. If it's him, I can make the decision for Keiichi Subaru. Pfft, Cursius chuckled when she heard this. Her eyes narrowed into crescents. I didn't expect you to be so humorous. I was too reserved. I've always thought that the stronger a person is, the colder and more aloof they are. Do you think I'm the same? Dustless asked without changing his expression. He said slowly, you can't judge everyone with the same stick. In this world, there are exceptions to everything. I'm not as arrogant as Julius, but that's only if you don't provoke me. Is that so? Cursius nodded thoughtfully and said, but the person in the marriage isn't Keiichi Subaru. He's just a servant and isn't qualified. Wait. Dustless suddenly stopped Perseus and asked with a frown, with all due respect, the marriage you mentioned. Amelia doesn't seem to have agreed. That's true, but she'll definitely agree. Perseus suddenly laughed and said confidently, Dustless, do you know? Because you are too strong, the other King's Choice candidates have contacted each other in private to deal with you all together. Am I that attractive to hate? Dustless had a helpless expression when he heard this. He smiled bitterly and said, in the end, I'm the one who's dragging Amelia down. Although it's not all your fault, it's also inextricably linked to you. Perseus nodded and said with a smile, the other candidates are all targeting her. If I propose an alliance at this time, Amelia will definitely accept. But why are you looking for me? Dustless was still annoyed. Then, he suddenly thought of something. Don't tell me you want to marry Amelia. There's no need to think about it. It's impossible. Without even thinking about it, Dustless refused on the spot. Why are you so sure? Perseus pursed his thin lips and asked with interest, can you represent Amelia's will? I don't think so. Maybe not for other things, but definitely for this. Dustless said faintly, change it to someone else. It's best if it's Keiichi Subaru. That way, I can be at your disposal. Actually, there's another person who's quite suitable. A strange light flashed through Perseus's eyes. He once again sized up Dustless with a resplendent gaze. It was as if he was looking at a perfect piece of jade. He clicked his tongue in wonder. Could it be, even if Dustless was a blockhead, he still understood Perseus's plan? Miss Perseus, the marriage partner you mentioned, don't tell me it's me. You've finally guessed correctly. Perseus nodded heavily. Although you don't have a noble title, your strength is amazing. Overwhelming power can make up for everything. This guy, hearing this, Dustless's forehead darkened. This girl really liked to be straightforward. I'm not bragging. Dustless's eyes shone brightly. I'm loved by everyone. Flowers bloom when they see me. Who do you think is worthy of me? Who can marry me? So give up. Actually, if you want to cooperate, you can go directly to Amelia. You don't have to come to me. A marriage alliance is unnecessary. Although a marriage alliance could improve the relationship between allies and bind them together, in Dustless's opinion, it was completely unnecessary. To be honest, there's no girl in my house who's worthy of you. Perseus spoke the truth. Then, the sudden sentence made Dustless stand up instantly. So I've decided to do it myself. I'll marry you. This way, we'll be one. You and I have a marriage alliance. Did I hear wrongly? Dustless looked at Perseus in surprise. He was speechless. Miss Perseus, are you serious? Of course, Perseus admitted calmly, staring straight at Dustless. How come you don't even look embarrassed when you say something like that? I'm really starting to suspect your gender now. According to Dustless's understanding, a girl should be abnormally shy when she said such words. However, Perseus's gaze was magnanimous. Not only was he not embarrassed at all, he even said seriously, this way, the benefits are too great. Great, my ass. Dustless rudely interrupted her. Maybe it's good for you and Amelia, but for me, it's also good for you. At least you'll have me, right? Perseus blinked. She spoke so naturally, so casually, and so calmly. Hearing that, Dustless looked at Perseus with a puzzled expression. He was really speechless for a while. He didn't know what to say. Perseus frowned at Dustless. Seeing him hesitate, she spoke with a hint of dissatisfaction. Do you think you're losing out by giving you a beauty for free? You're really narcissistic. Dustless helplessly rubbed his nose and explained seriously, to be honest, even without allies, I can easily help Amelia become king if I want to. If everyone died, wouldn't all the problems be solved? Violence can't solve everything. Kurth shook his head. I have to say that you're very strong, but there are some problems that can't be solved with strength alone. You know why people are afraid of Amelia, right? Even if someone like her becomes king, what's the point? It'll be the same as a general without an army, Dustless said slowly. That's right. Perseus smiled and nodded. Then, she revealed a sly smile. Since you're so loyal to Amelia, you should at least sacrifice your body. Don't you care about Amelia a lot? Are you not willing to sacrifice a little? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2240. It doesn't make sense. There's no way you could have found us. Zhu was driven mad and couldn't figure it out. He had been hiding recently because he was afraid that Dustless would find him and ruin his plan. But now, Dustless had suddenly jumped out like a ghost. Zhu was really scared. He was also deeply puzzled and doubtful. How did this brat find him? It doesn't make sense. Why do you think I let you go? Dustless asked softly. He glanced at Restia and saw that she was in a daze. She was still burning with anger, so she probably knew that Feng Zhao was dead. You knew that Restia was with me, so you let me go on purpose and then secretly followed me? Despicable. G.O. was not an idiot either. Through Dustless saying so, he instantly understood his intentions. Follow you. Don't be so self-righteous. Dustless shook his head and said, look at your arm. I left a mark there. Mark? Zhu's heart sank. He looked at his left and right arms and saw a unique symbol on the armpit of his right arm. You left this for me. Zhu's eyes narrowed and his face turned pale. Without a doubt, this was left by Dustless. That's right. That's the Flying Thunder God Warlock. You can't escape. Dustless nodded lightly and continued, I've obtained Restia. Your mission is complete. Now, go and die. As his voice faded, Dustless slowly walked over. Damn it, Zhu's eyes twitched and locked onto Dustless. His cold eyes were as calm as if he was looking at a dead man. There was no emotion in them. I can't die here. Gio's eyes turned and couldn't help but look at Restia. His eyes immediately lit up and he immediately dodged behind Restia. Stop right there. If you dare to take another step, I'll kill Restia and make you lose everything. Zhu threatened with a smile. His scarlet eyes were filled with desperation. You dare to use me as a meat shield. All of this happened too quickly. Celestia was stunned at first, but soon after, she sneered and said, looks like you want to die a little earlier. As soon as she finished speaking, Celestia was about to attack Gio. Stop it, stupid woman. It's better for you to listen to me now, Gio whispered into Restia's ear, his voice as soft as a mosquito, afraid that Dustless would hear him. This guy cares a lot about you. If you die, he'll probably be very conflicted. So, don't act rashly. Cooperate with me. This way, the two of us can leave this place alive. Gio said softly, his voice so weak that only Restia could hear it. Hearing this, Celestia frowned and replied indifferently, I didn't expect you to become so smart. If you capture me, Dustless won't dare to act recklessly. After all, his goal is to obtain me. If I'm dead, a corpse is useless to him. It's good that you understand, so cooperate with me now. Gio heaved a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that Celestia would act recklessly. After all, this crazy woman couldn't be treated like an ordinary person. She was extremely dangerous. Also, I have to remind you, glaring fiercely at Dushless, Geo continued, you said that God Feng Zhao is dead. Other than Dushless, there shouldn't be anyone else. What proof do you have? Celestia asked. I don't have any proof. It's just a pure guess. Geo shook his head slightly and said in a deep voice, God Feng Zhao hates Dustless. Perhaps he went to seek revenge on this guy, but he was killed because he wasn't strong enough. Such words made Celestia fall into silence once again. She lifted her gaze slightly and looked at Dustless. A murderous intent flashed in her eyes. Geo, who was paying close attention to Celestia, smiled knowingly. Although that murderous intent came and went quickly, he could still see it clearly. He couldn't help but gloat. Celestia, Dustless is very powerful. We can only win if we work together. Cooperate with me now. After we escape, we will find a chance to kill Dustless together. Zhu suggested. Celestia's eyes flashed and she nodded silently. You agree. Geo was overjoyed. However, not long after, his expression changed drastically. Pfft. At some point in time, a sharp dagger had appeared in Celestia's hand. She unceremoniously pierced Joe's heart and almost cut his stomach open. Under the instinctive reaction of pain, Geo let go of Celestia. What kind of show is this? Killing each other. Dustless rubbed his chin. His clear eyes swept around. This obviously wasn't a sad show. Joe's injury was fatal. His heart was destroyed. Not even God could save him. Bastard, what do you mean? Celestia. Geo was furious. His eyes were fixed on Celestia. His fists were sweating. If his body allowed it, he wouldn't mind dying with Celestia. You're right. Dustless is very powerful. Too powerful. Celestia also used a mosquito's voice to communicate. Only she and Geo could hear it. Then why did you plot against me? You want to fight him alone. Dream on. While Geo was furious, he didn't forget to look down on Celestia for overestimating herself. You and I can't defeat him even if we work together. Celestia only said one sentence. So I changed my mind. Since I can't defeat him by force, I can only ask a tiger for its skin for now. You want to rely on Dustless and find a chance to kill him. Joe's pupils suddenly shrank. He smiled sadly and said, It's said that beautiful women have the heart of snakes and scorpions. It seems that this saying is absolutely true. Plop. After saying that, Geo closed his eyes in despair and died completely. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2241. Shut the hell up. However, Amelia seemed to be really angry at this moment. This was the first time she had scolded Kaiue Subaru since they had met for so long. Crack crack crack. Kaiue Subaru's heart shattered into countless pieces because of Amelia's scolding. All this time, he had naively thought that Amelia hated him because of Dustless. However, this scene was a huge blow to him. Kaiue Subaru's eyes dimmed as he looked at Amelia as if he had lost his soul. Now, Amelia, who was usually as gentle as water, actually scolded her for Wu Qin. Kaiue Azuara's worldview suddenly collapsed. She muttered to herself, sure enough, Wu Qin is my true love. Jealousy is useless. At this moment, Dustless gloated as he stared at Kaiue Subaru's dumbfounded face. Serves him right. Alright, I agree to let you marry me, Amelia said suddenly. Then, Amelia said something shocking as she looked at Curseus. I hope you can keep your promise. F***ck, you sold me out just like that. Dustless cursed and looked at Amelia dumbfoundedly. He didn't expect this girl to agree to Curseus's condition. Ha 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 ha. You deserve it. Cayuse Subaru laughed and looked at Dustless happily. Cough, cough, cough. That Amelia, did you get something wrong? Dustless's expression was full of confusion as he ridiculed, you want me to marry Quirksy? Did I hear you wrong? No, you didn't. Amelia nodded and looked at Dustless seriously. Miss Curseus is beautiful and cute. Don't you like her? This isn't a matter of liking or not. It's just that I've never met this fellow before. Moreover, Wu Chen's expression was extremely gloomy as he spoke until here. He complained in an unusually dissatisfied manner, you actually betrayed me without mercy. This is not betrayal. In the future, we will all be a family. How can this be considered betrayal? Besides, Amelia smiled at Dustless. I helped you find a beautiful wife. Shouldn't you thank me? Thank my ass. Dustless scolded angrily, then frowned and said, in short, I don't have the habit of marrying. You'd better find someone else. What a joke. How could Dustless casually agree to something like this? Absolutely not. You are Amelia's knight. Are you going to disobey her orders? Kurth could not figure out where Dustless's courage came from. Shouldn't this guy follow Amelia's orders? That's not it. From the very beginning, Dustless and I have never had a master-servant relationship. Amelia shook her head. Dustless helping her participate in the king's selection was simply to pass time. What is this? Can I understand that I've been set up? Kurth was stunned. Looking at Amelia's innocent little face, he felt like he had been set up. No matter what, I've already promised you. As for whether Dustless will marry you or not, that's between the two of you. Amelia smiled. The corner of her mouth revealed a faint smile that showed that her scheme had succeeded. Hearing this, the corner of Kurth's mouth twitched violently. He had clearly suffered a great loss, but he could not refute. After all, what Amelia said was the truth. She had already agreed to the marriage on behalf of Dustless. As for the matter of marriage and sleeping together, it was up to Kurth and Dustless to discuss. At the same time, in another direction. Why are you here? Hurry up and leave. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. In front of a luxurious villa, Julius looked at the black-haired man in front of him with a stern gaze. He was extremely puzzled. This person was none other than Cayuse. I'm here to cooperate with you. Cayuse did not beat around the bush and said bluntly. Cooperation. With just you. Julius looked at Cayuse with contempt and said with disdain, aren't you Amelia's servant? Are you here to seek refuge with Lady Anastasia? With all due respect, Cayuse, you don't have the ability. Hurry up and leave this place. Julius sneered without holding back. He did not have the slightest favorable impression of Cayuse. Humph, you trash. Cayuse was not made of mud. He said sarcastically, what right do you have to talk about me? You're still crushed by Dustless. You're just a small worm. Hearing this, Julius looked at Cayuse quietly and said indifferently, that guy is very strong. Even if I lose, I won't blame or hate him. I have nothing to say if I'm not as strong as him. Besides, if you're here to sow discord, then I'm sorry to tell you that your plan has failed. You. Cayuse was furious. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, I've already left Amelia's place. Now, take me to Anastasia. Is that so? Julius glanced at Cayuse indifferently, but still shook his head, sorry, you are too mediocre. What? Are you looking down on me? Caio Azuara's eyes were spitting fire. He wanted to burn Julius alive. This guy's words hurt more than a slap to the face. Julius, let him in. At this moment, a young girl's soft voice came from the villa. Although Julius was dissatisfied, he still nodded respectfully. It was not difficult to see that the person who spoke was Anastasia. This is interesting. On the other side, Dustless also received the news that Caio Azuara had left and sought refuge with Anastasia. Dustless was fine, but someone was furious. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.